The story begins with a girl who rushes home to play her favorite video game when suddenly, Truck-kun appears, and she gets run over. She finds herself in the body of a princess, immediately collapsing on the floor as the servants panic, scrambling to find help, and we learn she has been reincarnated into the game as the evil Princess Pride, who serves as the final boss. Her character's role is to cause the downfall of the country in 10 years' time, committing atrocities until the protagonist puts an end to her reign of terror. As she lies on her bed, her father, the prince consort Albert, enters the room, checking up on her, telling her that her mother is worried about her. Her mother is named Rosa, and she serves as the most powerful leader in her country. Pride hardly ever meets her because she is occupied with her duties as the queen, but she knows that there is another reason. She asks Albert about her younger sister, knowing her sister is the protagonist named Tiara. He wonders how she found out about this, and he suspects that she has the power of precognition, which is the same power that Rosa has. Because of this, he starts seeing her as the genuine crown princess, but Pride knows that this is not how the scene is supposed to go. Albert tells her to get some rest as he leaves the room, and Pride remembers that the people in the kingdom can be born with special abilities. The power of precognition is one of the most valuable abilities, and it is fit for a monarch, so those who possess that ability are chosen to succeed the throne. Even in the game, her character displays that ability by correctly guessing that she has a sister, making her a worthy successor to the throne. However, Pride knows that her situation is different, because she knows that, as the game's final boss, she is going to get convicted and die in the end. She knows there is a bad ending where either Tiara or her love interest dies, but she doesn't want to force this ending, because she knows that Tiara and her love interest are good people, while her character is pure evil. At that moment, she remembers something, and she quickly gets off her bed, asking the maids about her father. The maids tell her that he left to report to the queen, and she opens the window, calling out to Albert as she hops on the window ledge. The maids try to stop her, but she tells them not to interfere. Pride tells Albert not to ride the carriage, saying it has a broken wheel which will cause an accident, and there is suddenly a strong gust of wind, which causes her to fall, but a servant grabs onto her, saving her in the nick of time. The maids immediately bow their heads as they beg for forgiveness, and this makes Pride remember that her character punished the maids, and even gave them the death penalty. This causes her to cry, as she apologizes to the maids, causing them to be shocked. Albert enters the room, asking her if the servants did something to her, but she says she's the one at fault, telling him not to punish the servants. Later that day, Albert tells her that she will meet Tiara on her 6th birthday, and he needs to adopt a younger brother to act as an assistant. The next day, as she walks around the castle, the servants talk about how she has changed as a person, as she thinks about denying everything because she is nothing like the Pride in the game. She thinks about how both of her parents are still alive, because in the game, they are supposed to be dead at that point in the story, so she thinks she can change the story in that world. Albert introduces her to her younger brother-in-law named Stale, who is one of the love interests in the game, saying he will act as her assistant. Stale has a teleportation ability, and he's wearing handcuffs to suppress this, because he tried to run away multiple times. Albert tells her that Stale will enter a contract of subordination with her tomorrow, so that the handcuffs will no longer be necessary. Pride remembers how her character tricked Stale into signing a contract of fealty, instead of a contract of subordination, and this gave her absolute control over Stale, making him her slave. This makes her worry that they are just following the storyline, thinking she can't change the story. That evening, she goes to Stale's room, asking him if he wants to see his mother. Stale becomes emotional, as Pride shows him the key to his handcuffs, which she secretly took from Albert's desk. Pride is about to remove his handcuffs, but Stale tells her that he and his mother would receive punishment if he escapes from the castle. Stale explains that after the official notice, he only had 2 weeks to stay with his mother before he was sent to the castle, and he was crying on the day they parted, but he was able to give her a proper goodbye. He is afraid that another kid would replace him if he escapes, saying he doesn't want anyone to suffer the same fate as him, so he'll just forget about his mother and serve her. Pride thinks that Stale is a good boy, and she remembers how her character manipulated him into killing his own mother, so she becomes emotional, telling him to sleep well as she walks away. The following day, they sign the contract, and Stale's handcuffs are removed, as Albert welcomes him to the family. Stale tells Pride that he is looking forward to being at her side, saying he will protect her as he addresses her as the princess. Pride tells him not to be so formal since they are family now, but her father's assistant, Chancellor Gilbert, goes to them, advising Stale to address her formally in front of others, as he tells Pride that she has become a fine vessel for a queen, knowing about her precognition ability. Pride takes Stale around the house, showing him the library, and she tells him to use it whenever he wishes. She later sees him holding onto some books, but he suddenly falls to the ground, as he starts breathing heavily. Stale catches a cold, and he starts crying as he remembers his mother. Pride realizes that he's been through a lot, and he even worked to study the way of life in the castle. She thinks about how cruel her character was to Stale, so she starts crying. Stale asks her what's wrong, and Pride hugs onto him, as she apologizes for not being able to help him, because she wants him to be with his mother. She promises not to hurt him, wanting to make everyone smile, and she tells Stale to kill her if she becomes a deplorable queen. Pride ends up sleeping in his room, as Stale thinks about protecting her. We see a scene in the game, where Stale tried to kill Pride after he was forced to kill his mother. Pride calls him a fool, saying he can't kill her because he signed the contract of fealty. Stale asks her what his mother did to deserve this, but Pride says she did nothing, and she only wanted to see him kill his own mother for fun. Stale wants to die, but Pride gives him an order, telling him he can't take his own life. He falls to his knees, as Pride laughs at him, and he becomes determined to have his revenge. Back in their world, Stale wakes up, saying he had a dream, but he can't remember what it was. As he prepares for his next lecture, he realizes that he brought Pride's handkerchief with him. He remembers the moment he shared with her, and he recalls when his mother received the official notice. His mother cried after receiving it, saying she doesn't need the money, as she begged them not to take Stale. Before they parted ways, his mother displayed an expression which is similar to what he saw from Pride. Stale reveals that he heard about Pride's naive attitude, so he thought about manipulating her, knowing she would become queen. With this plan in mind, he did everything he could to become the ideal assistant and an exemplary regent, thinking he can change the country's rules if he came into her favor. But he remembers how Pride told him to kill her if she becomes a deplorable queen, wondering what she's so afraid of. At that moment, Pride goes to him, telling him to go with her because she wants to give him something. She takes Stale to Albert, who tells him he made an exception for him, as he gives Stale an envelope. He opens it, and it is revealed to be a letter from his mother, who is happy that she can now exchange letters with him, wishing him well. Stale bursts into tears, as Albert tells him that this was done at Pride's request. He goes on to reveal that his mother will receive a fixed amount every month, and they will accept one letter from his mother each month, but he can only send one letter each year. Pride hugs him, telling him they all love him, and he thinks about why Pride is so afraid of becoming a deplorable queen, since she is such a good person. He becomes determined to protect her with his life, wanting to repay her kindness. Later, as Stale thinks about what he should write in his letter, he overhears people talking about Pride's selfishness, so he looks out the window, but he can't see or hear them well. He uses his teleportation ability, hiding behind the bush, as he continues to eavesdrop. Stale sees Chancellor Gilbert with a group of men, and they start talking about him, saying he is a commoner who must feel ashamed because Pride is looking down on him. Stale knows this is a lie, and Gilbert appears to be spreading this to make them question Pride's eligibility to succeed the throne, so he returns to his room, planning to report him, but he thinks that they won't believe him as he is now. He knows that he will need more than just courage, thinking he needs to be craftier than anyone else, to win even more trust than Gilbert has. He works on getting better, wanting to have an outer appearance that will be liked by the entire nation, so that he will be able to protect Pride from the filthy adults. Stale is now loyal to her, and he will not allow anyone but Pride to become queen. Meanwhile, Rosa tells Tiara that she will meet Pride and Stale at her birthday celebration tomorrow, and she becomes nervous because she doesn't know if they will like her. The next day, the nobles gather for Tiara's birthday celebration, clapping their hands as Pride and Stale make their entrance. Stale introduces himself to Rosa, saying it's an honor to be a part of their family, as he promises to assist Pride as the next regent, gaining the admiration of the nobles. Albert and Tiara also make their entrance, and Pride remembers how Tiara is supposed to join her love interests to take her character out, serving as the only light for the country during her character's rule. The nobles think she looks just like Rosa, and at that moment, Pride starts to feel jealous because the nobles never said that about her. She agrees with them, finding Tiara cute, but despite feeling jealous, she is determined not to torment her. Albert introduces Tiara to her siblings, and Pride looks forward to getting to know her. Tiara is pleased to meet her, calling her big sister, and Pride finds her endearing, which is expected from the likable protagonist of the game. Stale also introduces himself, saying it's an honor to become her older brother, but Pride notices that he isn't addressing her as the princess. He wants to work with her to support Pride, and Tiara agrees to this. The nobles are happy to see this, as Pride realizes that Stale made his move to let the entire country know that she is the future queen. The siblings join hands, and Pride declares that they will protect the country and its people, making the nobles cheer for her as they clap their hands. Rosa tells Pride not to forget this moment, saying they have high expectations from her. Rosa informs everyone that Pride's precognition ability has blossomed, so she recognizes her as the next in line to the throne. After that, Gilbert goes to them, telling them they stole everyone's hearts. He compliments Tiara's appearance, saying it's a shame she didn't gain the precognition ability, because she could have been the future queen instead, but Stale interrupts him, asking him what he means. Gilbert admits he was being rude, saying Stale has changed, since he now looks like he's from the royal family. He wants to talk to Stale about his commoner background, but Stale tells him that he was able to come this far because of Pride, and he wants to continue serving her with Tiara, as he displays a passive-aggressive behavior. Gilbert asks Pride what she thinks about the politics of that country, asking her about the other people with the same ability, but Albert suddenly hits his head and drags him away. Pride thinks that Stale resembles Gilbert, which is a shock to him, and he falls into despair because he doesn't like Gilbert. Rosa and Albert talk about Pride, thinking she's changed a lot after she awakened her abilities. Rosa reveals that she had bad premonitions about Pride, but she can no longer see them happening because of the changes to her. Rosa notes that only a month has passed since Stale joined the family, but she can't believe he is willing to go so far for Pride. The commander named Roderick approaches Pride, telling her he was deeply moved by her words, as he congratulates her for being recognized as the next in line to the throne. He wants her to meet his son in the future, and Pride looks forward to meeting him. Rosa says that the future has somehow changed, but Albert tells her not to worry, because Pride will make a great queen. After the event, we see Pride outside, staring at the sky, as she swears that in 10 years, she will do everything in her power to serve the country and its people. We see Stale training in the garden, but he gets embarrassed when he hears he will be marrying Pride. We learn it's common for adopted siblings to get married, but Stale ends up losing focus. The girls rush over to him, and Tiara treats his wounds. We learn that in the game, Stale actually develops feelings for her, so Pride wonders if that will also happen. She thinks about how her world has already changed so much, but she decides to test something to make sure. She fights against the instructor, and she manages to easily defeat him. We learn this is the first time she has ever picked up a sword, able to master self-defense by just watching, and she realizes she has the cheat abilities that make her the final boss. Stale can't believe she is so strong, thinking he won't be needed. But Pride tells him not to be discouraged, saying she is sure that he will one day become stronger than her. Stale gets back to his training, but after this test, Pride thinks her destiny is still to progress through the story of the game, but hopes to be able to spend her days with Stale and Tiara. Pride goes to observe the Royal Knights. She is greeted by the Vice Captain Clark, but Pride wonders why the captain isn't around. She is told that the captain was called away for a joint military exercise with the neighboring country. Stale thinks it's rude for the captain not to be around for Pride's first observation, but Pride is very understanding, saying she is sure that the knights will be outstanding even when the captain is away. Pride watches over the knights as they train, and she is thoroughly impressed by their skills, but she thinks about how her character used them all to do her bidding in the game. At that moment, a knight comes rushing over, informing Clark that the captain's group was attacked on their way to the neighboring country. Clark thinks they need to get Pride to safety first, but she insists on overseeing the operation. They head to the conference room, where we see the Captain Roderick reporting the situation. Stale notes that they are able to communicate, thanks to the ability of one of the knights. We see that Roderick is surrounded, but he notes there haven't been any casualties yet. Clark tells him they have sent reinforcements, but they are still 30 minutes away. Roderick isn't sure they can hold up that long, because they are already running low on ammunition. However, Pride has a plan. She reveals that Stale can teleport anything around his body weight, as long as he has the coordinates, so she tells them to prepare supplies they can send. We see Stale sending over the supplies, and Roderick's men manage to regain their morale. The captain can't believe Stale kept such an ability hidden this whole time, and one of the knights suggests he could drop bombs on their enemies, but Roderick immediately reprimands him, calling him disrespectful. Stale says he doesn't mind if Pride told him to do it, but she tells him to never do something like that. Clark apologizes for his man, and Pride reminds them to keep Stale's ability a secret, not wanting Stale to be used for war, but for him to use his ability for himself, and to protect the things that he wants. A soldier reports that the reinforcements are 10 minutes away. Clark orders for half of them to help Roderick, while the other half apprehends the enemy on the clifftop. Roderick warns them to watch their footing, because the ground in the area is unstable. However, this makes Pride remember something from the game, as she suddenly warns them not to go up to the clifftop, saying she got a premonition that it would crumble. She uses her authority as the crown princess, ordering them all to retreat. The men rush off to send word, but we learn that Roderick is actually stuck near the cliff, because his leg got caught by a falling boulder. He tries to cut off his own leg, but he fails, because he actually has a slash nullification ability, which makes him immune to taking damage from swords. Roderick thinks it's the end for him, but his son suddenly appears, saying he's a terrible father, and telling him to survive for his mother's sake. Roderick gets surrounded by the enemy, and he prepares to go down with a fight. Pride thinks there's nothing she can do, but she notices a certain man among the enemies. The men rush at him, and he fights them off, but they realize that guns work on him, so they start shooting at him. His son falls to his knees, begging someone to save him, but Pride tells him not to worry, saying she will protect everyone in her country. She tells Stale to teleport her to the battlefield, but he thinks it's too dangerous. She tells him to believe in her, saying she'll be okay, and he teleports her away. The enemy is about to finish Roderick off, but they suddenly get shot at, as Pride makes her entrance. She jumps down the cliff, telling them to prepare themselves, but Roderick tells her to get away. Pride claims he is one of her citizens, saying it's her duty to protect him, as she rushes at the enemy. She starts taking them out, and Roderick can't believe she is really just an 11-year-old girl. 3 men charge at her, but she jumps over their attack, taking them all out. The men try to retreat, but she gets hold of a gun, shooting them up, and they think she's some kind of monster. The cliff starts to crumble, but Pride catches the man she saw earlier. She tells Roderick to grab onto the man, saying they'll all die if he doesn't use his ability. The cliff is about to crush them. We see a scene from the game, where Roderick's son watches on as his father is killed. Clark orders the knights to look for survivors, as he mourns Roderick's death, but Pride mocks the fallen captain, saying his death was pathetic. Clark tells her that Roderick sacrificed his life to help the others escape, but Pride thinks it doesn't matter, because they still died in the end. She isn't bothered by the casualties, saying she can always recruit new knights, and she appoints Clark as the new captain. Roderick's son knows that Pride has foreseen the tragedy, but she just allowed everyone to die, so he becomes angry, thinking about getting revenge for his father. He knows that he won't be able to do anything as he is now, so he thinks about becoming a knight just like his father, and he cuts his hair, determined to bring Pride to justice. Back in their world, the cliff falls on Pride and Roderick, and everyone starts to fear the worst, but a strange rock formation catches their attention. The formation crumbles as the other knights arrive, and they both make it out alive. The knights are overjoyed to see that their captain has survived, as Pride orders them to put their enemy in custody, before attending to Roderick's injuries. The knights wonder who she is, so Roderick informs them that she is the princess, and everyone is shocked to hear this. In the conference room, they receive a report stating that there are 0 casualties, and this makes everyone happy, but Stale realizes that he just sent Pride to the battlefield, unable to do anything to protect her. Roderick wants Pride to return to the castle immediately, informing her that the vanguard has arrived to escort her back. Roderick tells her that there are plenty of things he would like to discuss with her, so he wants her to schedule a meeting. They return to the castle, and Pride has a meeting with the knights. She tells the knights to speak their minds, as she thanks them for keeping her involvement a secret. Roderick wonders how she found out that their enemy is a special ability user, and she claims that it's because of her precognition ability, but it was really because of her game knowledge. Roderick asks her why she joined the fight alone, saying she should have alerted the other knights before making a move. Pride explains that they wouldn't make it in time, and she tells them that because of the limitations of Stale's ability, she was the only one who could rush to the scene. Roderick becomes upset, saying she shouldn't have entered the battlefield even if no one could have saved him. He tells her that she should have just informed the knights, and left everything to them, but she tells him about what could have happened if she hadn't interfered. Roderick interrupts her, reminding her that they are knights, so they will gladly give their lives for the country. He tells Pride that her actions almost disgraced the way of the knights, and she could have brought despair upon all of their countrymen if she died. She realizes that he has a good point, knowing he was seeking an honorable death, but she thinks about Roderick's son, knowing he would have been sad if his father died. Roderick goes on to lecture her about the value of her life, saying she is far more valuable than they are, so she shouldn't risk her life for them. Pride demands silence, admitting that he speaks the truth, because her actions caused some trouble, but she tells Roderick that he wasn't the only one he rescued, saying she also saved the knights who will soon be under his leadership. She states that those knights will save more people in the future, because it's their duty to protect the people directly. She lectures the knights about the value of their lives, saying many people will die if there is no knight to protect them, so she implores them to forget about dying an honorable death, and think about saving their countrymen instead. Pride tells Roderick that he doesn't understand the value of his life, telling him about the people around him who devote their hearts to him, so even if he was just a mere soldier, she would have done the same thing. Pride wants to save people whenever she can, as she reminds them about her position as the first princess, telling them that she lives for the sake of the people, so she will not allow any needless death. However, Pride knows that her actions have caused the knights some trouble, so she sincerely apologizes for this. Clark speaks up, saying he doesn't approve of the royal family getting involved in the incident, but he thanks her for saving the knights, and he bows before her as he thanks her for saving Roderick, knowing he would have died without her help. The other knights join Clark, thanking Pride for saving their captain, and Roderick's son walks closer, thanking her for saving his father. The boy reveals that he is a special ability user, but he thinks his ability doesn't do much, so he gave up on becoming a knight. However, when he saw his father's life on the line, he regretted not being able to do anything, so he wants to train harder, and he starts crying as he asks Pride if he can be a knight just like his father. Pride tells him that he can do it, saying he has her support, because he has the kindness to weep for his family, and the desire to get stronger. She wants him to protect everyone after he becomes a knight, and he holds onto her hands, as he promises to protect her with his life. Pride asks for his name, and he reveals that his name is Arthur Beresford. She is surprised to hear this, as she realizes that the boy is actually a love interest in the game. She remembers that Arthur is the captain of the knights, and he is the only one who has the sword skills to overpower her character. Pride tells Arthur that she has foreseen his future, saying he is sure to become an honorable knight, but she remembers how evil her character is, so she orders him to kill her if she becomes an enemy of the country. Roderick suddenly prostrates himself, bursting into tears as he thanks Pride for saving his life. He admits that he is overjoyed to see everyone again, and he is happy to hear his son declare that he wants to become a knight, saying he is glad to be alive. Pride is also happy that he survived, but Arthur thinks about what she just said, wondering why she said that. He wants to protect her even if the whole world becomes her enemy, determined to make sure that she doesn't go down the wrong path. Arthur intends to cut down the people who stand in her way, and even if she starts to fall apart, he will do everything in his power to save her. We see that when Arthur was a child, he wanted to become a knight just like his father, but when he discovered his ability, which he uses to tend to his crops, and his parents are excited to learn he is also an ability user, he is pitied by other people, because his ability was no good for being a knight. No matter how hard he tried to train his ability, it never changed, so he started thinking about being a farmer instead. But after meeting Pride, he has become determined to become a knight. He resumes his training with his father, and he asks to learn more about Pride. He goes in for the kill, but he ends up getting pushed away. However, Roderick is impressed by his technique, thinking he is even more talented than himself. His wife arrives, wondering what they are doing, and she is surprised to learn Arthur is trying to become a knight, but Roderick quickly runs off, saying he has business to attend to, leaving his sword behind. Pride wonders how Arthur is doing, and we see that in the game, Roderick died at the cliff, causing Arthur to curse Pride for throwing his father's life away so easily, and swearing to get revenge on her. But she's glad she was able to encourage him to become a knight. Pride visits the knights, telling Clark she has something to return to the captain. When the other knights hear that Pride is visiting, they all rush over to her, and she has become quite popular with them after the last mission. Roderick comes rushing over, and Pride notices he seems to have hurt his head. Clark points out they were drinking all night, and after training with Arthur in the morning, Roderick ended up having an accident. Pride is glad to hear Arthur already started his training, and Roderick tells her Arthur was asking about her. But at that moment, Arthur arrives, bringing Roderick his sword, and he gets embarrassed when he sees Pride. All the knights smile at him, but he prepares to leave. Clark knows he has something he wants to say to Pride, but Arthur says he will tell her after he becomes a knight. Before he can go, Stale invites him to join in on his training, saying he's in need of a training partner, and Arthur agrees. Stale shows him to their training room, but as Stale talks to him, he finds his smile suspicious, wondering what he is planning. Stale says there's no need to be formal with him, telling him to just think of him as a friend. They start their training, and Stale is surprised by Arthur's skill, wondering if he really took a break from his training, but Arthur claims he hasn't touched a sword in years. Stale tells him he should try out for the knights, which is a surprise for Arthur because he thinks he is just a beginner. He thinks it would take him at least 3 years to prepare, but Stale thinks he is ready, and he offers to support him in any way. Arthur wonders why he is trying so hard to make him a knight, and Stale says it's so that he can protect Pride. Even though Pride is strong, he worries she will continue to be reckless in the future. He is training for the purpose of protecting her, but he knows he isn't enough. He recognizes how strong Arthur will become, so he wants him to be the one to protect her. Arthur finds it strange, thinking he is just a noob, but as he thinks of Pride, he wants to be able to protect her. He wonders why Stale is trying so hard for Pride's sake, and Stale thinks they are similar, saying he owes everything to her, so he made a vow to live for her sake. He finds it hard to trust the people around them, but after seeing Arthur swear to protect her with his life, he started to believe in him. He wants to become Pride's shield, and he tells Arthur to become her sword. Arthur accepts his explanation, agreeing to work together for Pride's sake. They start to get along, and Arthur tells him his smile creeped him out. Stale is surprised hearing this, and Arthur says it was the reason he found him suspicious. They start messing around, and Stale is glad to have met him. We see Pride reading about the laws of the country, as she recalls that her character used it to commit atrocities, so she wants to make sure that she doesn't go down the same path. Pride appears at the throne room, where Gilbert tells her that the man she captured is involved in the disappearance of knights from an allied kingdom. He reveals that the man set up an ambush after extracting information from the knights held in captivity. Rosa knows that Pride has been reading about the laws of the country, so she wants her to pass judgment as the future queen. The criminal enters the room, and Pride remembers that his name is Val, knowing that her character hired him to fight Tiara in the game. We learn that the knights held in captivity are still alive, so they're going to need Val's guidance to find them, and Rosa wants Pride to mention what she is considering as she delivers judgment. Pride says that Val has committed a serious crime, and she thinks that he deserves to be executed, but she knows that they're going to need him to find the captive knights, so she considers applying a fealty contract. She orders the knights to remove his gag, as she approaches him, asking him how he would like to be punished, as she explains that he will be deprived of his free will after he enters the fealty contract, so he could end up suffering a fate worse than death. But Val tells her that he doesn't want to die, so she ultimately decides to release him after he serves the contract. Rosa tells Pride to carry out the contract, and she signs it, but she worries she's going down the same path as the game, and starting to become evil. Val also signs the contract, allowing it to take effect, as Pride gives him his orders, forcing him to serve the royal family, and live an honest life free from violence. After some time, Stale reveals that the knights have been rescued, so Pride approaches Val, telling him to speak his mind. He calls her a monster, making Stale upset, but she decides to release him anyways, saying she will leave him with 2 orders to live by. The first order is to protect Tiara in case of emergency, and everyone is surprised to hear this, but Pride says that it's a matter of the highest priority, so Val can disobey her for Tiara's sake. The second order is to return to her in case he needs help, and she sets him free, ordering him to leave the castle. His legs start moving against his will, and as he starts walking, he asks her why she's doing this. Pride tells him that it might just be based on unfounded fear, and the guards escort him away. Stale thinks she's being too lenient, saying Val deserves a harsh punishment, but Pride sees him as one of her subjects, so she gave him another chance, knowing he wants to live. Tiara wonders if she's being a hindrance, because Pride asked Val to protect her, thinking she must be weak, but Pride tells her that she loves her, saying she just wants to protect what's important to her. She reveals that she also loves Stale, telling him that she wants to be his older sister until the very end. We learn that Pride is happy to be with them, and she wants them to remember that she loves them, even if something bad happens in the future. It's almost time for the knighthood exam, and they meet up with Arthur, as Pride reveals that they will be watching him train every day, thinking it will encourage him to train harder. Stale and Arthur have a sparring match, and after a few days, we see the boys continuing their training, while the sisters pick flowers. The sisters give the boys flowers, as Tiara reveals that Pride chose the flowers for them. She reveals that the flowers have meaning, explaining that Stale's flowers express intelligence, success, and worthiness, while Arthur's flowers represent heroism, strength, and beauty. She puts flowers on their heads, saying it looks good on them, but it becomes time for the knighthood exam, so Arthur bids them farewell and makes his way outside. After 2 years, we see Arthur walking to the throne, and he kneels before Pride, who tells him that he is now a knight. After the ceremony, Stale asks Arthur about Gilbert, who seemed to be pestering him during the event, but he reveals that they were just talking about an uncommon special ability. Arthur gives Stale a box, which contains glasses, and he tries it on, as the sisters tell him that he looks great. Gilbert pesters Pride about his proposal, when Albert suddenly stops him and takes him away. She reveals that he was proposing a special ability registration law, where the people will be required to report their ability, but she doesn't like it, because she thinks that it violates human rights. Stale tells her to be careful around Gilbert, and she laughs, as she recalls that the two of them were able to get along in the game. But this makes Pride confused, because she thought that Gilbert wasn't a character in the game. We learn that Stale can now teleport more than just his weight, and she orders him to take them to Gilbert's location. Stale teleports them to the entrance of a room, where they hear Gilbert arguing with Albert, because his wishes have not been granted. He reveals that he isn't happy, because they quickly deal with the matters that involve Pride, but even after 7 years, they still haven't given him what was promised. Albert tells him that he understands his struggles, but Gilbert becomes upset, saying Albert will never understand what he's going through, because his fiancée Maria is dying, so he needs someone with the special ability to cure her illness. We see a scene from the game, where Gilbert asks Pride what she has done to him. She tells him that he is stuck as an old man, because he told her to enact a law, which gives her absolute control over the rare special abilities in the world. We learn that he did it because he thought that the law would help save Maria, but he starts crying, knowing that it's all his fault. We return to the present, and Pride finally remembers who he is. Gilbert is revealed to be a secret character in the game, but Pride didn't recognize him, because his appearance is different. We learn that his fiancée has an incurable disease, so he asked for her character's help, and she promised to enact a law in exchange for 5 years of labor. But the day after the law was enacted, Maria died, and her character forced the special ability users into subordination or death. Feeling guilty for what happened, Gilbert could no longer look like a young adult, and he was only able to switch between an old man and a boy. Pride thinks that Maria will die after a few weeks, because the law was passed on that day, and it takes weeks for a law to be enacted. They see Albert ordering the guards to search the castle, so Pride approaches him, asking him about the commotion. He reveals that Gilbert is missing, and they go to a room, where Stale explains Gilbert's situation to Tiara, while Pride remembers that her character decides on execution and war, without listening to the opinion of others. This makes her realize that her character could have enacted the law immediately after it was passed, which means this could be the day that Maria dies, so she and Stale quickly dress up. We see Gilbert with a group of thugs, promising to pay them if they can find someone who can cure illness, but the men laugh, thinking the ability doesn't exist. He is about to walk away, but the thugs attack him, so he fights back, knocking them down. However, one of them grabs onto him, and he is about to get stabbed, when Stale and Pride suddenly arrive, helping him deal with the thugs. Pride tells Gilbert that she had a premonition, saying Maria is about to die. In a flashback, we learn that Gilbert was born as a commoner, and after his parents died, he had to resort to underhanded methods just to make ends meet. He meets Maria as she escapes her room, and we learn that her health is declining, so she was confined to her room. She tells him that he is the first person she has ever met, asking him to take her to a place where she can see more people. Gilbert grants her wish, allowing them to view the city from a distance. Maria tells him that it's the most beautiful thing she has ever seen, and he offers to take her there whenever she wants. She accepts his offer, and since then, he started to change his life, landing a decent job, because she has given him a reason to live. One evening, Maria reveals that she has a fiancé, so he starts crying, but she tells him that she loves him, and she kisses him. She wants him to keep seeing her until she turns 16, because that's when she's going to get married. Gilbert awakens his ability Eternal Youth, which allows him to manipulate his own lifespan, and he tells Maria that he won't be seeing her for a while, but he promises to return to her. He focuses on his studies, and he is appointed as Albert's advisor, making him the nation's chancellor. Gilbert returns to Maria, asking her to marry him, and she hugs him as she accepts his proposal. He is finally enjoying his life at the palace, but one day, Maria collapses due to her illness. She tells him to live a good life if she dies, but he promises to cure her, saying he will do whatever it takes. Back in the present, Stale threatens Gilbert, knowing he has committed crimes to save Maria, but Pride stops him, saying Gilbert is still her subject. Pride and Stale return to the palace, where Gilbert calls out to Pride, imploring her to help him. They decide to join him, as Pride orders Stale to teleport her to Arthur, and go with Gilbert to Maria's room. Pride approaches Arthur, and she tells him that she wants to save someone, but she is certain that his life will change if he decides to help her. Arthur tells her that it's okay, because she has already changed his life, saying he is willing to die for her. Stale joins them, as Pride wonders why he looks like a grown man, but he tells her that there's no time to explain, and he takes them to Maria, who is about to die. Pride orders Arthur to lay his hands on Maria, revealing that he has the ability to heal all of creation. Upon laying his hands on her, a bright light appears, and her condition instantly improves. She thanks Arthur for saving her, as Pride notes that he wasn't supposed to know about his ability yet, knowing she has changed the story again. She thanks Stale for helping her, wondering why his body has changed, so he reveals that Gilbert transformed him into a grown man to help him move faster. Gilbert bows to her as he expresses his gratitude, and he admits that he has committed unforgivable acts in his quest to save Maria, saying he is ready to take any punishment that she has for him. Pride says that she can't excuse this, but she just tells him to inform her parents about his crimes, ordering the maids to forget everything they witness. She orders him to make an oath that he will work for the people, and continue serving as the Chancellor of the country until he dies. He starts crying, as Pride recalls that Gilbert promised Tiara that he will protect the people at the end of the game. Gilbert makes the oath, and he pledges allegiance to her, saying he will never forget the kindness that she displayed. That evening, Arthur reveals that the knights now know about his abilities, and Stale wonders if he still wants to be a knight, because his ability has opened more lucrative opportunities for him, but he tells Stale that he wants to keep his position. They start talking about Pride, thinking she is unfair because she let him off so easily. Stale admits that he's upset, because he really hates Gilbert, saying he doesn't deserve his position. Stale starts to think that he wasn't able to protect Pride, seeing Gilbert as a threat, and he starts crying, but Arthur tells him that he's doing a good job. Arthur reveals that he used to hear plenty of bad rumors about Pride, but they all disappeared when Stale started supporting her. He knows that Stale won't be able to protect her from everything, so he offers to help accomplish this task. He mentions how Stale is more mature than him despite being at a younger age, revealing that he used to cry a lot. Stale promises not to cry for 5 years, and Arthur says that he will do the same, because he wants to look strong in front of them. During a royal banquet, Stale reveals that he despises Gilbert, but Tiara thinks that he's just jealous. Gilbert knows that Stale doesn't like him, so he takes this as a challenge, and he formally announces that he will be marrying Maria. At the arena, the knights are fighting for the position of Imperial Guard, and Arthur wipes the floor with everyone, allowing him to earn the title. While riding the carriage, they talk about how fierce the competition was, because only Roderick and Clark didn't participate, and everyone fought to the best of their abilities. Pride thinks about giving the knights a raise, when the carriage suddenly stops, because there is a man blocking their path. She realizes that it's Val, so she rushes over to check up on him. Later that day, Val regains consciousness, and Pride tells him that he has been carried to the castle. He is about to disrespect her, but the contract of fealty stops him, making him fall to his knees. Pride wonders what happened to him, and he reveals that the contract compelled him to return to her. She recalls that she ordered him to return if he needs help, so she asks him what he needs from her. He refuses to tell her about it, but the contract forces him to speak the truth, so he tells her to help the kids, Kemen and Sefik. Val reveals that they were taken by human traffickers, and Pride recalls that he can't use violence, so he can't save the kids. She places him under house arrest, so he calls her a monster, but she says that she will help him, because human trafficking is illegal, and it's her duty to help those in need. After some time, when they visit Val in his room, where they realize that he has made a mess, Pride gives him his meal, but he takes the knife, instantly throwing it toward Pride, which makes everyone panic, but we see he was just aiming at a spider. Pride orders him to go to bed after the meal, saying he needs to be in good condition to save the kids, but he says that he doesn't need their help, claiming the kids aren't important to him. Tiara wonders why he wants to save the kids, and he claims that they help him live a comfortable life, so Pride speculates that he is using the kids to do his bidding. Val tells them to leave him alone, and Pride hugs Tiara, knowing she is afraid. Pride knows that Tiara is sensitive to people's sorrows, thinking there must be a reason why she talked to Val. Pride tells the others to look after Tiara, while she stays in the room for a bit longer, saying she will be fine because she is Val's master. Pride tells Val they will save the kids in the morning, but he insists that he doesn't need help. She asks him about the kids, so he reveals that they've been following him around wherever he goes, because they think that he will keep them safe. She asks him what they were like, and he reveals that they are both special ability users. Val reveals that Kemet has no purpose of his own, so he keeps following other people, and Sefik is always looking after him. Even though they aren't related by blood, she acts like his big sister. Val knows that she has the ability to blast people away with water, but he doesn't know what kind of ability Kemet has. He says that it was Sefik's idea to follow him, and that he taught the kids about money, but he starts pounding the wall, saying he's starting to feel sick again. Pride asks him about what's precious to him, and he claims that he just values money in his life, but Pride digs deeper, wondering if he has anyone precious in his life. Val claims that he doesn't care about anyone, but she asks him how he would feel if Kemet and Sefik died. Val becomes upset, feeling pain in his heart, but he wonders why his thoughts are causing him to feel this way, and he starts punching the floor, saying he can't stop thinking about the kids. He blames Pride for everything, saying she should have just killed him so that he wouldn't experience this pain. Val bursts into tears, and he is confused about what's happening, so Pride concludes that he doesn't understand his emotions. She hugs him, ordering him not to push her away, as she explains that his suffering is a part of his punishment. She teaches him about his emotions, saying he feels sick because he is worried about the kids, and he is crying because they are like a family to him. Val meets up with the human traffickers, but they refuse to release Kemet and Sefik because they want 5 kids in exchange, but he's only brought 4. He says that he's the 5th one, but they think he isn't worth it, so he shows them his ability, making them change their minds. Val tells them to release Kemet and Sefik, but they restrain him instead, saying they will never let go of their merchandise. Val and the kids are thrown inside a carriage, and we learn that the 4 kids are actually Pride and the others. It is revealed that before they met up with the human traffickers, they came up with a plan to infiltrate the enemy base so that the Knights can eliminate the human traffickers after they rescue the prisoners. Arthur worries that their plan won't work because the public knows who they are, so Gilbert transforms them into kids, and they assume different identities. They arrive at the enemy base, and Stale removes his restraints. The enemies wonder why Stale is free, so they grab onto him, but they are instantly sent to a prison, where the Knights start interrogating them, wanting to know about the location of their base. Stale rescues the other kids in the carriage, and we learn that the enemies have separated the special ability users from the ordinary kids. Arthur, Gilbert and Pride join the ordinary kids in a cell, where they hear a girl calling out to Val. Pride realizes they must be Kemet and Sefik, so they approach them, saying they are Val's friends, but she doesn't believe them, saying Val doesn't have friends. Sefik thinks that Val got caught, calling him an idiot, because she knows that the human traffickers would never release their merchandise. She inquires about his location, so Gilbert reveals that Val went to the prison of special ability users to look for her, but the guard is bothered by the noise, telling them to shut up. Meanwhile, Val and Stale rescue the special ability users, but Stale wonders why they haven't found Kemet and Sefik. Val thinks that they must be hiding their abilities. Stale notices flashes from a distance, and Val thinks that it must be from a special cell. At that moment, a guard spots them, but Stale quickly teleports him away, saying the Knights should be arriving soon. Val detonates a bomb, grabbing the attention of the other guards, and he uses his ability to trap them. Arthur thinks that the special ability users have been rescued, but Sefik is worried about Val, so she uses her ability, blasting the guard away. Stale enters the special cell, where he sees a boy lying on the ground. He removes the restraints, as the boy wakes up, introducing himself as Powell. Stale tells him that he can now go home, preparing to teleport him away, when lightning suddenly comes out of his body, as he reveals that he doesn't want to go home, because he brings misery to everyone around him. Stale realizes that Powell's ability is out of control, but he walks forward, saying he is also a special ability user. He tells Powell about Pride, saying the country will change after she becomes queen, and he promises to help him find a place to belong. The lightning continues to injure him, but he is able to hold Powell, who disables his lightning, asking Stale why he's doing this. He explains that he understands what he is going through, and Powell starts crying, as he is teleported away. Stale thinks about returning to Pride, but he collapses because of his injuries. Meanwhile, the Knights arrive at the location, as a knight named Alan notices Arthur, asking him what he's doing there. He hides Pride from the Knights, ordering them to back him up, while he charges at the enemy. Arthur runs away with her, but Alan catches up to him, and he recognizes Pride, but Arthur claims that he is mistaken. The human traffickers catch Val and Stale, preparing to interrogate them, but Gilbert suddenly arrives, telling them that the knights have arrived, frightening the enemy leader. Gilbert proceeds to taunt him, but the boss shoots him in the arm. Seeing this, Arthur charges at them, targeting the leader, while Alan orders the knights to attack. Arthur slices through the enemies, but the leader has taken Val hostage, threatening to kill him, so Arthur stops fighting, and he ends up getting restrained. Gilbert returns Pride to her original form, and she sets Arthur free, slicing the chains with her sword. The leader tries to attack her, but she shatters the chains, causing him to panic. He tries to shoot her, but she easily slices through the bullets. She doesn't want to dirty her hands by killing him, so she throws her sword away, giving it to Alan, who delivers the finishing blow. It looks like it's finally over, but they suddenly hear a loud explosion as an airship starts bombing the area. They start running for the exit, but they receive a report that Kemet and Sefik are still inside. Val finds Sefik, but she tells him that Kemet is trapped, so he tries to save him using his ability, but he's not strong enough. The cave is about to collapse, but he still tries to save Kemet, and Alan orders 2 knights to help him, while the others evacuate the cave. They carry the kids away, leaving Pride and Arthur to help rescue Kemet. Val sees Kemet through an opening, but the cave is on the verge of collapsing, so the knights try to convince Val to leave, but he refuses, reminding them that he's a criminal, so they don't need to care about him. He tells Pride not to give him any orders, but she tells him to block them off, and he is grateful to her for this. Pride and Arthur leave the cave, and Sefik approaches them, asking them about Val and Kemet, but Arthur tells her they are still inside. Sefik is about to go back, but the knights stop her, so she uses her ability, launching water at them. Seeing this, Gilbert comes up with a theory, and Pride returns to Val, ordering him to remove the wall. Val wonders why she's back, but Pride tells him to grab Kemet's hand. He wonders what they're planning, knowing that he can't pull Kemet out of that hole, but after Kemet grabs his hand, Pride orders him to control the entire cave. Val thinks that he can't do it, but he suddenly feels an overwhelming power as the cave instantly transforms. He wonders how he did it, as the rubble disappears, allowing him to reunite with Kemet. We return to Gilbert, who thinks that Kemet's special ability could be to amplify the power of a user, because he remembers how strong Sefik was when she defeated the guards, but her ability was so much weaker after being separated from Kemet. Val finds this unbelievable, and he starts controlling the cave with his hand. He creates a platform, which starts moving on its own, and they make it out of the cave. Sefik is overjoyed to see Kemet, but we see a man watching them from the airship, which is revealed to be invisible. The man drops bombs from the ship, covering the area with explosions. Sefik is about to fall down a cliff, but she is saved by Val, and he falls down instead. He starts to wonder what has become of him, because he never imagined that he would risk his life for a kid. In a flashback, we learn that Val's mother abandoned him when he was 7 years old. The people treated him harshly, so he learned to fight back, and even killed people to survive. He joined a criminal group to make profit, but Pride captured him, and she made him sign the fealty contract before setting him free. Val returns to his town, where he sees Kemet and Sefik, who are being attacked by the other kids, but they all run away after seeing him. Val ignores the duo, but they start following him anywhere he goes, thinking he will keep them safe. He tries to run away, as he remembers that he was involved in human trafficking, but the kids are still following him, so he tries to use force, but he can't, because the contract forbids him from using violence. Val knows that he can't do anything, so he decides to ignore them, but after a few months, he gets used to having them around, and he even starts to teach them. Sefik starts a business by selling water, and their relationship deepens, as they start looking after each other. But one day, the human traffickers capture the kids, and the leader assaults Val, ordering him to bring 5 kids in exchange for Kemet and Sefik. He tries to retaliate, as the contract of fealty stops him, but he remembers he can return to Pride for help. Back in the present, Val accepts his fate, happy that he was able to save the kids in the end, but Pride catches up to him, ordering him to grab her hand. She calls out to Stale, who immediately regains consciousness and teleports to their location, bringing them back to safety. Kemet and Sefik are crying, thinking Val has fallen to his death, but he appears behind them, and they are overjoyed to see he survived. The next day, Arthur warns Pride to be careful, because they still haven't caught the person responsible for the bombing. Val arrives with the kids, and he has helped Pride with a delivery. Pride is surprised that he was able to do it in 1 day, because it usually takes 5 days to complete the task, but Stale confirms that the letter is authentic. She thanks Val for a job well done, as she announces that he and the kids will become the royal family's exclusive carriers. Kemet and Sefik are happy to hear this, and Pride reveals they will be establishing a school in the country, promising the kids that they will be able to live better lives. She tells them that the school will be established if they decide to do their part as carriers, and Val promises to help her with this goal, accepting her as his master. Pride watches as Arthur fights Gilbert, but it looks like he doesn't stand a chance, and Gilbert tells Stale to join in, but Stale refuses because he still doesn't like him. Gilbert promises to teach them a technique if they can land a hit on him, an attack that can knock an opponent unconscious without causing harm. Stale is interested by this, so he joins the fight, telling Arthur that they will gang up on Gilbert. They proceed to attack him, but he dodges their attacks, and easily takes them down. Val arrives, wondering what's happening, and Tiara offers the kids cake. Sefik is interested, asking Val and Kemet to join her, so Val goes to take Kemet's hand, but he ends up grabbing onto Pride, making Stale and Arthur jealous. Val realizes the mistake, so he quickly walks away with Kemet, as Gilbert notes that his opponents are distracted. Before leaving, Tiara tells Pride to cheer for the boys, thinking they will be encouraged if she tells them how she feels. As the fight drags on, she notices that the boys are getting beat up, so she tells them to stand up. She says that Stale is smart and cool, and she is proud to have him as his brother, while Arthur is a spectacular knight, who is so strong that she thinks he can defeat anyone. She tells them to win, and Gilbert notices that they are now serious, so he concludes that Pride can bring out their inner strength. She continues to cheer them on, as they charge at him, managing to land a hit. After the fight, we see that the boys are exhausted, but Arthur is determined to get stronger, saying he wants to surpass Gilbert. He recalls that he wasn't able to do much during their fight with the human traffickers, thinking he hasn't changed at all, because he wasn't as helpful as Stale. But Stale reminds him how he used his sword to protect everyone, and this helps him realize that he has done his part. Pride tells them that they fought well, and she proceeds to wipe Arthur's face, saying she was captivated by his fighting skills. She does the same for Stale. She thinks about how they have both become admirable people, and she is glad she was able to meet them. She reminds them that they must protect Tiara and the people no matter what, but they tell her that they will also protect her, and Pride is happy to hear this. Pride thinks about everything she has been through, but she knows that it's just the beginning, and that she could still end up as the final boss, so she resolves herself to continue to do everything that she can, to protect everything that's important to her. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. The story begins as we see a group of heroes fighting against the demon lord Diablo. The demon lord blasts them with his magic, and he commends them for reaching him. The priest Fred thinks it's all over for them, but the hero Max tells him not to give up. His companions are inspired and manage to get back up, but Diablo prepares to finish them off. Fred manages to block the attack, while Leo rushes in and blocks the demon lord's punch. Max jumps over him, while their mage Yuria enchants his attack, and Max manages to deliver the finishing blow. As the dust clears, the demon lord commends Max for defeating him, but he swears his minions will live on for eternity, and that he will one day return to get his revenge. We cut to 10 years later, and we see Diablo has been reborn, excited to get his revenge on Max. He is welcomed by his servant Xania, and he wonders where his other minions are at. But Xania tells him they all went to sleep after his battle against the hero 10 years ago, so he calls them all useless. Xania thinks he should put some clothes on, but when he goes to put on his old favorite clothes, he wonders why they don't fit. Xania shows him how his appearance has changed, saying it seems his powers have not fully returned after only 10 years, so his body has also changed, including his gender. Xania says she predicted that this might happen, so she reveals she has prepared some other clothes for him. He wonders why he is in a dress, but Xania claims it's the traditional attire for mages, but Diablo says he doesn't remember Max's companions wearing something like this. Xania also puts him in a maid outfit, as well as a school uniform, but he eventually gets fed up with the outfits. He asks about how the hero is doing, but Xania gets nervous hearing this. The demon lord thinks that since Max was the only person who was able to defeat him, he must have made a name for himself over the last 10 years, thinking he might even be treated like royalty. Xania checks her records, and she mentions his current status is a mystery. As far as his appearance on the social and political stages, he seems to have disappeared. Diablo finds this strange, but thinks he must have gone into seclusion to train himself, thinking he remained humble after becoming a hero that saved the world, and he gets excited to see him again. But Xenia says he has a ton of work to catch up on, saying he should forget about the hero. But Diablo refuses, saying Max poses the biggest threat to him. Xenia says that although the hero has superhuman abilities, he is still a human at the end of the day, so he will eventually just get old and die of old age, so she thinks he should stop thinking about him. However, Diablo can tell she is hiding something from him. Xenia panics realizing she has been caught, and Diablo thinks it's because Max is already dead. He wants to see for himself, so he uses his third eye to look for him. He can sense that Max is still alive, and he is somewhere around the human capital. Diablo decides to pay him a quick visit, but Xenia tells him it's a bad idea. She tries to stop him from going, but he doesn't listen to her, wanting to announce his return, to strike fear into Max's heart. Diablo claims that this was the reason why he awakened early, and he flies off to find Max. He flies over to the human realm, and he notes that their civilization seems to have advanced over the last 10 years. He gets excited thinking about how Max will react to seeing him, and he arrives at his apartment. He shows off how he has finally been reborn, but we see Max who is just confused, and he is half asleep. Max wonders who he is, and Diablo thinks he must be in the wrong place. But he suddenly notices Max's holy sword, recognizing it as the sword that defeated him. Max seems to realize who he is, and Diablo reprimands him for treating his sword like trash. Diablo can't believe he is really the same person that defeated him, and he thinks Max has gone completely out of shape. Max claims it's a natural part of getting older, but Diablo says he can't even recognize him from how he looked 10 years ago. He can't believe he is living in such a dump, thinking that it stinks, and he even starts helping him clean up. He is surprised to find a laptop, finding it interesting, but he suddenly remembers the reason for his visit. He claims to have returned stronger than ever, and he will rule over the humans once more. But Max has no reaction to this, and he even says that he doesn't care. Diablo is annoyed he woke up early for this, and he wonders what happened to him. Max reveals that after he defeated him and all the other demons, he was no longer needed by the world, and he ended up fading into obscurity, saying that in a peaceful world, heroes are completely useless, and he thinks living like a bum isn't so bad. Diablo looks him up on the laptop, and he finds a number of alarming results. He was apparently involved in a scandalous affair, but Max claims he didn't do it. Diablo sees a video of him being interviewed, and thinks he is super guilty, but Max explains he didn't know the woman was married, and he thinks he was framed by the husband. Diablo looks at the next article, and finds he violently attacked a citizen. Max claims the headline is misleading and just trying to make him look bad, as he explains he was just defending himself when a bunch of guys jumped him. But Diablo thinks he could have just run away, remembering how Max got away from his undead army 10 years ago. Diablo starts enjoying himself, and he finds an article saying Max cheated on 10 different women. Diablo can't believe he became such a creep, but Max claims he never even met those women, and he says he is the victim. Diablo looks for his better moments, watching an interview he gave after he defeated the Demon Lord, where he says he was only able to win thanks to his friends, and he looks forward to his next mission. But Diablo laughs at him, finding it super cheesy, and he reasons that it was because of his insufferable attitude that made people want to expose him. Diablo notices a picture of his companions, and he wonders if they are still close, but Max says he hasn't seen them in years. Diablo thinks this is sad, but Max says that relationships don't last when there's nothing in it for the people, so he sees no reason to see them again. But Diablo thinks he is mistaken, saying it's because of his egotistical attitude that drove them away. Max says he doesn't know what he's talking about, and tells him to leave. Diablo realizes why Xenia tried to stop him, thinking that the hero he once knew is gone. He prepares to leave, saying he will prepare his army, but Max just encourages him to destroy the world. Diablo suggests he will go and take out his companions first, and Max tells him to start with Leo, because he owes him a bunch of money. Diablo attacks him, thinking he has become trash, but Max takes him out with a single hit, and Max claims there's no way his friends would lose to him. When Diablo wakes up, he finds himself in a closet, and he wonders why Max didn't finish him off. As he comes out, he finds Max in a peculiar state, but he's actually just looking at girls online, and Diablo wishes he would have waited until after he was gone to do this. Diablo wonders why he didn't finish him off, but Max claims he is no longer a hero, so he has no business killing demon lords, even worrying it could end up in another embarrassing news headline. Diablo notes that he hasn't lost his touch, and he is still as strong as when they fought 10 years ago. Max tells him that he is the one who has gotten soft, laughing at his threat to take out his companions. But Diablo claims it's because he only just woke up. He says that one day he will regain his full powers and take over the human realm, hoping that when that day comes, they will do battle once again. But Max isn't able to make that promise with him. He is disgusted by the current world, and he has lost his ambition to be a hero. But he says that even without him, there will be a new hero who will rise to the occasion to stop him. Diablo comes to accept this, thanking Max for his hospitality, and they say farewell. However, later that night, Diablo suddenly returns, and he prepares to cook for them. Max wonders what he is doing, finding him even more terrifying than how he was 10 years ago. Diablo says he thought about it, and thinks it would be too tragic to let someone of his caliber rot away, and he thinks he should study up on what humans have been doing over the last 10 years, so he decides to stay over while he does his research. Max doesn't want to babysit him, but Diablo claims he's the one who will be doing the babysitting. Diablo cooks hot pot for them, and Max admits it might not be the worst idea to have him around, but there seems to be a ghost that watches them. The next day, Max tells Diablo that he is going outside, and Diablo wants to go with him, but Max is against this because Diablo doesn't look human. As he leaves the apartment, Diablo speculates that Max is going to train for their rematch, so he thinks about shape-shifting to observe him. He thinks about the form he should take, and he remembers that Xania gave him a school uniform, so he transforms into a female student. As Diablo walks around the city, he observes his surroundings, realizing that the world has changed after 10 years, but everyone is staring at him because of his revealing outfit. He sees Max walking around, so he starts stalking him, watching him as he drinks in the middle of the day. Max sits on a bench, as Diablo wonders if that's how he's going to spend the rest of the day. There are some kids that approach him, calling him a hero, and they play soccer together. After the game, he tells the kids about his glory days, as Diablo realizes that he fits in with the kids. The mother of one of the kids calls her son home, and the other boy says he also has to go, revealing that his mother doesn't want him to play with Max, and the last kid gives him food before leaving. After eating the food, he falls asleep on the bench, as Diablo wonders why he didn't go home. A group of thugs approach him, telling him not to sleep on the bench. One of them grabs onto him, not knowing who he is, and he hits him, challenging him to fight back. At that moment, Diablo remembers that Max attacked a civilian in the past, so he is afraid that Max will retaliate. However, he just tells the thugs that they are not worth his time, and they start beating him up. Diablo becomes upset, so he uses magic to make them fall asleep. They walk home together, as Diablo apologizes to Max for not helping him sooner. But Max reminds him that he's no longer a hero, so that's the kind of life he has now. He claims that he was really freaking out when the thugs were beating him up, but Diablo knows this isn't true, saying it was right for him not to retaliate because he's the bigger person. The next day, as they are about to enjoy their meal, the doorbell rings, so Diablo opens the door. He sees Xania outside, happy that Diablo is doing fine, but he asks her what she's doing there, because she is supposed to be waiting for him at the castle. Xania tells him she was worried about him, but she suddenly collapses. She starts gobbling up their food, leaving nothing for them to eat, and she compliments Diablo's cooking skills. Xania asks for a toothpick, and Max doesn't like her behavior, but Diablo asks him to excuse her poor manners, saying she is his secretary. Max thinks she isn't qualified to be his secretary, but Xania calls him rude, revealing how she walked for 3 days just to reach Diablo. Xania says her journey was difficult, and the humans were gazing at her as she passed by, thinking it's because she's a demon, but Max tells her that it's because of her outfit. She implores Diablo to return to the castle, telling him he will lose brain cells by spending time with Max. Diablo claims that he's just there to experience human society, but Xania knows this isn't true, knowing he's obsessed with Max. She thought Diablo would return to the castle after seeing Max's situation, but she never imagined that he would stay with him. Max tells Xania she can take Diablo away, but Diablo becomes upset, telling Max that he can't function without him. Xania wants to fight Max, saying she will sever his ties with Diablo, and Max is surprised that she is fighting with brass knuckles, because she looks like the type that would use magic, but Diablo reveals she has no magic power. Diablo tells Xania to stop, saying she doesn't stand a chance, but she quickly charges in, as Max dodges her attack, grabbing onto her as he threatens her with a spoon. Diablo claims that she would have died if Max didn't go easy on her, telling her to apologize, so she obeys her master, saying she can now see why Diablo speaks so highly of his strength. Diablo notices that Xania is covered in sweat, so he asks her to take a bath. While she takes a shower, Max notes that she packs a crazy punch, saying it must have been tough on Diablo to have her as a secretary, but Diablo states that despite her rough behavior, she's an expert at gathering intel. She finishes taking a shower, and Diablo tells her to make herself at home. Max tells them he's starving, so Diablo says he will go buy dinner for him. Before he leaves, he reminds Xenia that she's a guest in the apartment, asking her to be nice to Max. Diablo leaves the room, as Xenia drinks beer, saying she knows that he's a playboy. She tells him not to corrupt Diablo with his unsavory ways, as she claims that he only got lucky during their fight, saying she would have beaten him if Diablo wasn't there, but he doesn't appear to be paying attention. So Xenia pulls him closer, asking him about his lousy attitude, as she calls him a shitty hero. Max notices that she's drinking beer, telling her she's had enough, as he tries to take it, but he ends up falling on her chest. He immediately apologizes, but Xenia becomes upset, and she starts attacking him. Max realizes that she is faster now, thinking his life is in danger, so he starts running away as Xenia chases after him. They reach an open area, and Max decides to fight her without holding back, but the police tell Xenia that they want to talk to her, because she shouldn't be running around the town naked. She becomes embarrassed, and she starts crying, asking them to forgive her. Max states that Xenia is his acquaintance, saying he gave her too much to drink, as he claims responsibility for what happened. As they ride the police car, Xenia apologizes for her actions, and the cop recognizes Max as the great hero, thanking him for saving the world, but Max thinks it's unfortunate that they had to meet like that. Back in the apartment, Diablo apologizes for Xenia's behavior, but Max has already moved on from the incident, asking him if Xenia has returned home. At that moment, Xenia enters the apartment, revealing she's now their neighbor, because she now lives next door. Xenia reveals that she still doesn't trust Max, so she wants to keep a close eye on Diablo. At the Magic Bureau, we see Max's old companion Fred, as he watches a video of Max getting chased by Xenia, but he recognizes that Xenia is a demon. In a flashback, we see Max and Leo walking in the woods, when they see a group of demons charging at them. They prepare for battle, but a barrier stops the demons, and they realize there is a powerful barrier surrounding the area. In a chapel, we see Fred telling the people that talismans are keeping them safe, but new species of demons have appeared, so they created new talismans to protect them, offering it at a discounted price. The people scramble to buy the talismans, but the duo arrives, laughing at the talismans. Fred goes to them, telling them the talismans work even against the most powerful demons, but Leo knows that he's lying. At that moment, a powerful demon breaks the barrier, and a swarm of demons descend upon them. Fred and the other clerics try to fight, but there's just too many of them, so the people start running away. A civilian uses the talisman to defeat a small demon, but when he tries using it on a stronger demon, it does nothing. Leo saves him in the nick of time, telling him to leave, as Fred becomes exhausted, but Max helps him out. Fred realizes that they are not ordinary travelers, and they fight the army of demons together. They defeat the demons, but lightning strikes, and it's about to hit Fred, but Leo protects him. The demon boss appears before them, and it charges at Max, exchanging blows with him. Fred attacks it with holy light, as Max delivers a decisive blow, but the boss survives, and it teleports away. They sit together, as Fred reveals that he's a phony cleric, since he's been ripping people off with his crappy talismans, but Max thinks he's skilled since he protected the town with his barrier, so they ask him to join the party. Back in the present, Xenia gives Max a book, asking for his opinion. He opens the book, and he learns that it's about Leo's defection from the kingdom, making him upset. Max immediately walks away, as Diablo realizes that he must find it difficult to talk about his former friend's defection. While walking outside, a reporter approaches him, asking him about his video with Xenia. He claims that the woman running after him is his drunk friend, but the reporter keeps asking him questions about Xenia, so he starts walking away. The reporter wants to follow him, wanting to find where he lives, so they can catch him with Xenia, but he suddenly disappears. We see his footprint on the ground, and we learn that he jumped away. He can't believe that someone recorded the incident, but he feels relieved because nobody knows that Xenia is a demon. He returns to his apartment, but we see Fred's group following him, calling him pathetic for living in such a dump. As Diablo tells him to get changed, the doorbell rings, and they sense a powerful magic behind the door, so Max tells Diablo to hide, saying his presence will complicate things. Diablo hides in the closet, as Max opens the door. He is surprised to see Fred, asking him what he wants, but Fred reminds him that they're buddies, so he just wants to catch up. Fred enters the room, telling his companions to take a break, and Max tells Fred that he isn't prepared to entertain him as the chief secretary of the Magic Bureau, but Fred claims that he's just an ordinary person around his friends. He wonders why the place is so tidy, because he knows that Max is a slob. Max tells him to get to the point, asking him how he found his address, but Fred keeps looking around, saying he wants to reminisce. He sees their picture from 10 years ago, and he reminds Max about the time they slipped through the demon's defenses, where he used his skill to conceal their presence. He sits with Max, revealing that he's there to discuss the Gamma Republic, which is a new country formed by Leo when he defected from the kingdom 3 years ago. Fred reveals that the Republic is actually a terrorist organization, which is currently occupying the kingdom's territory. It is composed of traitors and criminals, but its military is growing, so it's considered a threat to the kingdom. Max wonders if they're on the brink of war, and Fred tells him that they need to prepare themselves because they're bound to cross swords eventually. Max isn't interested in participating, but Fred begs him to fight for the kingdom, knowing he can help stop Leo. Fred adds that if he joins the Royal Army, they can bring a swift end to the dispute with the Gamma Republic, saying Leo might even surrender before a war breaks out. He doesn't want to see casualties on both sides, so he asks for Max's help, but Max reminds him that he's retired, claiming he's not as good as he used to be. Fred informs him that he is guaranteed a higher rank in the Royal Army, so it's the perfect chance to make a comeback, knowing he's financially struggling at the moment. He becomes upset, telling Max that he doesn't belong in his tiny apartment, but Max tells him this is what his life amounted to, telling him to ask someone else. Fred thinks that Max doesn't want to fight his former friend, but he denies this, claiming he has no morals, as he tells Fred to go home. Fred is about to leave, but he tells Max that he saw his video with Xenia, asking him where he met her, but Max refuses to answer his question. Fred says that they've been through a lot together, so he doesn't care if he's hanging out with demons, but he wonders what other people will think if they find out, thinking it will be the scandal of the century. He thinks that Max will be branded as a traitor, but Max claims that Xenia is not a demon. Fred tells him to relax, saying he's the only one who knows. But he asks him if he wants to return to his hero life or become a wanted man. Max says he has no proof, but he tells Max not to underestimate him as he makes his way to the closet, saying he can sense an evil aura inside. He opens the closet, but he sees a ghost staring at him, so he immediately closes it. Fred asks him if he noticed anything strange while living in his apartment, but Max has no idea what he's talking about. Fred looks at him, and he sees the ghost behind him, so he becomes scared, saying he has to leave, as he tells Max to stand back. He quickly leaves the room, as Max wonders what's gotten into him. Diablo leaves the closet, and Max asks him if he did something to scare Fred, but he denies this, saying he was just hiding. He apologizes to Max for putting him in his position, and he admits that Diablo is giving him trouble, so he might have to leave the kingdom. Fred's companions wonder what happened to him, since he appears to be in bad shape. They ask him if he was attacked by Max, but he denies this, telling them to take him home, but his companions remind him that he still needs to attend a meeting, so they carry him back to his office. Despite what happened, Fred is still determined to get Max on his side, thinking it's also in his best interest, but he refuses to go back to the apartment again. The next day, we see Xenia as she brings Diablo a particular book, which he claims will help him conquer the human realm. He shows the book to Max, and it turns out to be an album of hot demon girls in his area. Diablo thinks he must be lonely after he became washed up, and tells him to just have a look. Max thinks he couldn't date a demon, since he went around slaughtering them 10 years ago. But Diablo says it's not a problem, since demons have multiple lives, so he is sure they won't mind. Max has a look, but he finds Xenia on the first page. He instantly throws it away, but Diablo says she's a catch, as long as he keeps her away from alcohol. They decide to move on, and Diablo tells him there's plenty to choose from, but the next one is just a pig. Max starts to lose it, but Diablo claims the girl is one of the most elite warriors in her army, saying she's actually quite sweet. But Max can't get over the fact she's a pig. They look at the next girl, and Max is glad she's a human, thinking she looks pretty hot, but she turns out to be half snake. Diablo thinks he's just too picky, but the book is just filled with all kinds of strange demons. Diablo asks him what type of girl he likes, and Max explains he wants a human-looking girl that's cute and knows how to cook. Diablo thinks about which one of his minions could fit the description, and he ends up transforming into his schoolgirl disguise, saying he could make the perfect wife since he can cook and clean. Max is stunned seeing this form, but there's a knock at the door, and Diablo quickly changes back, opening the door for Xania. Max thinks back to the past, when Diablo offered to make him a demon, telling him they could rule the world together, but Max claims he would rather die. Diablo once again asks him to become a demon, saying things are different now, but Max is not convinced. So Diablo gives him a presentation on what it means to become a demon. He says it comes with a competitive salary, remembering how Fred said Max was broke, so he won't have to worry about money if he joins. Max claims he still has some money saved up, but Diablo tells him to think about his future, mentioning he could earn 2.5 million yen per month. He goes on to tell Max about the relaxed work schedule, saying he would only work 3 days a week, and at most only 5 hours a day, along with getting paid vacation. Max can't believe how good it sounds. He wonders if it only applies to the people working in the castle, but Diablo mentions that everyone in their society follows these conditions. He also adds that by becoming a demon, he'll gain more power, as well as an immortal soul that will resurrect after a period of time if he's killed. Max can't believe they didn't lead with that, and Xania hands him the contract. Max hesitates looking at it, and Diablo asks him to walk the path of immortality with him, but Max ends up turning him down. Diablo wonders why, and Max says he just wouldn't be himself if he agreed. Diablo thinks it's a shame, wanting to have spent eternity with Max, but he claims it's now up to himself to get his life together. Max agrees, and he gets fired up as he decides to find a way to make money. He decides to become a YouTuber, saying there are some people that make a ton of money from it, when all they do is play video games and scream into their camera, but Diablo has his doubts. Max tries his best, but he soon despairs, as his first video only gets 14 views. Diablo decides to have a look, but Max gets embarrassed for him to watch it. As Diablo watches, Max goes by the name Mackie, but he's too nervous and he just mumbles. When he actually starts playing the game, Diablo quickly becomes bored, finding it terrible, but he tries to cheer Max up, telling him not to give up. Max decides not to let one setback get him down, and he decides to find another way. So he ends up trying to do a snack review, but it does just as bad, and the commenters call him a pig. He starts to think he isn't cut out to be a YouTuber, but Diablo suggests he should try one more time, telling him to give it his all, and even offering to help him out. But this gives Max an idea. We see Diablo in his schoolgirl form, trying out streaming, as Max coaches him from behind the camera. In just a few minutes, he already has over 2,000 viewers, and the chat thinks he's cute. They like his outfit, so he shows it off, saying it's his uniform. Max tells him to do a snack review, so Diablo decides to eat a popsicle. After a few more minutes, he now has over 10,000 viewers. He gets some of his popsicle on his uniform, so he starts to take it off. Max can't believe what he's watching, and the chat is going wild. But they end up getting banned from the platform, so they think they'll need to find something else. Max and Diablo head to a mall, where they meet a girl at the supermarket, who recognizes Max as the great hero, thinking Diablo is his girlfriend. She shakes his hand, but she tightens her grip and removes her mask. Max recognizes her, and she tells him that she's about to go on her break, wanting to talk to him outside. Diablo finds her suspicious, asking Max who she is, and Max reveals she is one of Leo's companions, Annie. He knows that she is from the Gamma Republic, and she takes him outside, leaving Diablo behind. They head to the locker room, where Annie gets changed, and Max asks her what she's doing there, so Annie reveals that she's spying on the enemy. Meanwhile, Diablo is still in the mall, thinking about keeping an eye on Max. He is approached by a man named William, who asks him if he is with Max. Diablo confirms this, so William tells Diablo to go with him, saying he will take him to Max. Annie sits with Max, and we learn that it's been 5 years since they last met. He asks her how Leo is doing, so Annie reveals that Leo is always thinking about him. As they walk together, Diablo asks William if he is from the Gamma Republic. He confirms this, so Diablo calls him a terrorist, making William upset, as he claims that they are not terrorists, because they are fighting for what's right. Diablo is annoyed by William's behavior, but he pretends to be helpless, begging William not to hurt him. William reveals that he is there to recruit Max, but he thinks Max won't be able to help them, seeing him as a washed-up hero, so Diablo becomes upset, telling William that he is no match for Max. We return to Max, as he tells Annie that he doesn't want to get involved in their dispute, wondering if she's trying to drag him into the mess. Annie gives him an envelope, which contains a ticket to the Gamma Republic, saying he can use it to go there. She invites him to hang out with them, knowing Leo will be happy to see him. Max says he'll think about it, when suddenly, they see William holding onto Diablo as he criticizes Annie's methods, saying it won't be enough to bring Max to their side. Diablo pretends to be a damsel in distress, and Annie tells William to stop, but he refuses, thinking they need to use a hostage to coerce Max into going with them. He claims that the kingdom has been spreading lies about the Gamma Republic, and he invites Max to join the Republic with his girlfriend. But Max says he has no girlfriend, so he doesn't care what happens to Diablo. William disparages him, thinking he doesn't have the guts to save his girlfriend, and Max agrees with him, saying he isn't even worth their time. William threatens them, but Max doesn't seem to care, so he becomes upset, pulling Diablo's hair, but Max instantly dashes forward, breaking his arm and throwing him into the river. Annie saves him, and she apologizes for his behavior, saying he didn't know about Max's reputation. William also apologizes, knowing he was wrong about Max, and they decide to return to the Gamma Republic, bidding Max farewell. Diablo wonders if Max is going to join them, but he doesn't want to get involved because he doesn't want Fred to become his enemy. Back in his apartment, Max takes pictures of the tickets, planning to make money by selling them online. Diablo thinks he should go to the Gamma Republic, but Max thinks it's too risky for him to go, because he may not be able to return. Diablo opens the closet, and she opens a portal inside, saying they can use it to return to the apartment in case something bad happens. He summons Xania, telling her that they will be gone for 2 days, so he asks a favor from her. Max doesn't want to go to the Gamma Republic, but Diablo uses a spell to hypnotize him, and the next thing he knows, he's already on an airship. Diablo tells him that he can no longer escape, calling him sloppy, because he could have repelled that spell 10 years ago. Diablo thinks they should know about the situation in the Gamma Republic, and they arrive at their destination. Max reveals that Leo's men will give them a hard time if they see him, so Diablo gives him a disguise. They enter the Gamma Republic, where they check out a hot spring. Diablo thinks the place is great, but Max thinks it's a ticking time bomb, saying it will run into problems in the future. He wonders why Diablo is sticking his nose into the dispute, and Diablo claims that he just wants to see humans destroy each other, so that his minions can invade the world with ease. At that moment, they hear people talking about Leo, so they join the crowd, and they see Leo in the hot spring. They have no idea what he's doing there, so an old lady explains that he's cooling down the water by stirring it, because it's still too hot for people to bathe in, but they see Leo enjoying the hot water, as Max notes that he hasn't changed at all. In a flashback, we see Max and Leo fighting in the Colosseum. They fiercely exchange blows, creating a whirlwind around them as they fight with everything they have. Max manages to disarm Leo, allowing him to secure the victory, but he helps Leo back up, and they celebrate together. Back in the present, Max and Diablo are walking around the city when they hear an announcement from Annie, saying the area around the border is now a restricted zone. The people speculate that there is a fight going on, so Max suggests leaving, but an old lady tells them that this happens all the time, saying everyone is used to it now. Diablo suggests going to the border so that they can witness the military capabilities of both sides. Max opposes the idea, but Diablo reveals that he is holding onto the return tickets, so Max can't return without him. Diablo flies away with Max, but before they could reach the border, he loses strength, causing them to crash. Despite this, they still reach the border, where they witness the fight between the Republic and the Kingdom. The Kingdom's leader, Captain Galmoff, orders the artillery to fire, but a powerful barrier repels it. The Republic fires back, covering the artilleries with gas, which puts the Kingdom's soldiers to sleep. Max knows that they used a weapon that shoots magic, and both sides fire at each other, but neither of them gain an advantage. Max wonders why the Kingdom can't break through the wall, as Captain Galmoff talks to a mage named Vodka, who thinks that the Republic has attached a magical device to protect the wall. Vodka knows that they won't make progress with their artilleries, so he comes up with a plan. The soldiers of the Kingdom fall back, and Annie's group thinks that it's over, so they start talking about what to do next, when suddenly, a powerful beam penetrates the wall, injuring Annie. Her companion tries to treat her, but the enemy attacks again, messing up his hair. We learn that Vodka is sniping them, concentrating his powers to penetrate the defensive barrier, but Leo suddenly appears. He runs to the wall, jumping over it, and he prepares to face the enemy alone. The enemies prepare to shoot him, but he spins his spear around, creating a powerful whirlwind, which he launches toward the enemy, completely wiping them out. Leo approaches Galmoff, and we learn that he used to serve in the Royal Army. Galmoff tells Leo that the Kingdom will not stop, and the peaceful negotiations that Leo desires will never happen. Vodka suddenly fires at him, landing a direct hit, and he says that Fred is suffering because of him. But Vodka realizes his blast didn't do any damage. Leo tells Vodka that he would like to talk to Fred, as he lands a powerful blow, which knocks Vodka out. Galmoff withdraws his men, as Leo's friends thank him for saving them. Leo explains that he only went there because he felt a strong demonic presence, but he's starting to think that he's just imagining things. Diablo is impressed after seeing Leo's powers, saying he now understands why the Gamma Republic is able to defend against the kingdom, but Max thinks that the Republic is only strong because of Leo. Diablo wonders if Max would be able to defeat Leo, but Max thinks that he wouldn't be a match for Leo in his current state. Diablo thinks that they have seen enough, so he proceeds to cast a teleportation spell, but Leo suddenly senses their presence, so he throws his spear at them as Max runs away with Diablo, telling him to open the portal. Leo chases after them, thinking they work for the Demon Lord, as Max realizes that he can't outrun him, so Max faces him, ready to take him on. Leo can't recognize him because of his disguise, thinking he must be a spy from the kingdom. Leo says he feels a demonic power coming from Diablo, so he wonders what Max is plotting. He tells Max to hand over Diablo, saying he will let Max go if he complies, and Diablo uses telepathy to tell him to do it, wanting him to escape. But Max clings to Diablo, saying he won't give him up, as he tells Diablo that he will buy time for the teleportation spell. Leo charges with his spear, but Max counters him, and they start to fight, while Diablo starts to cast his spell. Leo ends up destroying Max's disguise, revealing his face. But Leo still can't recognize him, wondering who he is. Diablo finishes casting the spell, calling Max by his name, and Leo finally realizes who he's fighting. He asks Max what he's doing with the demon, but Max refuses to answer the question, as he is teleported away. They return to the apartment, where Diablo thanks Max for protecting him, but Max tells him to forget about it, and they agree that they had a pretty fun vacation. Diablo summons Xania, but she doesn't respond, so Diablo feels like something is wrong. We see Xania making her way to the Bureau of Magic, and we learn that Diablo ordered her to investigate it while he was away. The Bureau of Magic produces magic-based energy for the kingdom, making it an important government institution. Xania plans to infiltrate it, so she goes around the building, and she uses a grappling hook to help her scale the wall, but everyone can see her, wondering what she's doing. She's stopped by a locked door, so she uses her lock-picking skills, but she ends up breaking the lock, and as she enters, a guard stares at her, asking her who she is. She knocks him out, as she remembers that Diablo told her to value human life, because humans only live once. She sneaks through the air vents, and she eventually finds the server room, but there is a man in the room. She quickly takes him down, and she tries to hack the system, but at that moment, Fred enters the room, saying he was able to sense her presence. Xania uses a smoke bomb, covering the area in smoke as she tries to escape, but she ends up getting caught. Fred restrains her, as he interrogates her, and he learns that she is working for Diablo. He wonders what they are doing with Max, but at that moment, his assistant Lem enters, telling him that Minister Grims wants to see him, so he leaves the room, ordering Lem to watch Xania. Lem takes care of Xania, as she thinks about escaping, knowing she'll be in trouble when Fred returns. Fred sits with Grims, as they start talking about Leo. Fred thinks that Leo defected after accepting bribes, but Grims tells him that someone from the kingdom must have framed Leo, because he knows that Leo is a man of integrity. Grims reveals that he wants to have a peace treaty with the Gamma Republic, because many of their citizens sympathize with Leo, so he thinks he will be able to garner support if they go the peaceful route. He suggests putting a hold on all military operations at the border, so that they can establish a strategic alliance with the Republic. Grims thinks it will be possible with Fred's help, because he is Leo's friend, and Fred agrees to help him, saying he will do everything in his power. At the interrogation room, Xania covers her body with oil, planning to use it to help her escape, but she still can't remove her handcuffs. Lim threatens to use magic if she makes any sudden moves, but Xania uses her brute force to shatter the handcuffs. However, her legs are still restrained. Lim activates her magic as Xania breaks her restraints. Lim is now surrounded in flames, and she uses it to trap Xania, causing her to suffocate, and she is about to pass out, but at that moment, they are caught in an explosion. Grims appears to be behind it, as he tells his driver not to stop, because he doesn't want to get involved in the incident. He's planning to pin the blame on the terrorists, and he wonders what Fred will do next. Xania is still conscious, and she sees Lem lying on the ground. She is about to escape, but she remembers how Lem looked after her, so Xania patches her up, and carries her out of the building. Back in the apartment, Max and Diablo learn about the explosion. Diablo tells Max that he ordered Xenia to investigate the Bureau of Magic, so Max thinks that she could be behind the explosion, but at that moment, Xenia returns to the apartment and she immediately passes out. After some time, Lim regains consciousness, and Diablo tells her that she was injured pretty badly, as she recalls that she was caught in an explosion, but she wonders why she didn't end up in the hospital. Lim wants to return to work, but Diablo tells her to lie down, exuding his demonic aura, as he tells Lim that she has potential. He shows Lim an employment contract, tempting her to become a demon by mentioning its benefits, but Max tells him to cut it out. Max apologizes for the mess they caused, and Lim learns that Xenia is working for Diablo. She knows that they are demons, so she asks Max to explain himself. Diablo speaks up for him, claiming that they were stray demons who were struggling to survive after the demon lord died, but Max took pity on them, so he took them in. He claims that they were moved by Max's generosity, so they decided to help humans. Lim actually believes his story, and she asks if they were behind the bombing at the Bureau, but Xenia denies this. At that moment, Lim receives a call from Fred, and she informs him that she was caught in the explosion, so she is undergoing treatment. Fred knows that she isn't in the hospital, so Lim reveals her location, and Fred orders her to give the phone to Max. Max admits that he is hanging out with demons, but he tells Fred that he had nothing to do with the explosion. Fred doesn't seem to believe him, so Max suggests talking in person. Fred plans to go to the apartment, but he suddenly hears a strange voice, and he remembers that there is a ghost in the apartment, so he freaks out, telling Max that they should meet elsewhere. After the call, Fred receives a call from an unknown number, and he declines it, but he sees the ghost behind him, saying he wants to talk. The rescuers arrive at the scene, and they see Fred having a seizure, thinking he must have been caught in the explosion, so they put him on the stretcher. Meanwhile, we see the 9 cabinet ministers in a meeting. They discuss the situation, as the First Minister Franca reminds the others that they expelled Leo from the kingdom, asking them if they are happy because they now have a reason to go to war. But the other ministers are convinced that this is the work of the Gamma Republic, so they discuss what they should do next. The minister named George believes that they will be able to defeat the Gamma Republic, but he is certain that there are going to be casualties. They need someone who can defeat Leo, so the minister Reinhardt asks Grims if he can convince Fred to fight for them. Max and Diablo enter a restaurant where they have dinner with Fred, who wonders how a powerful demon like Diablo was able to survive. Max is about to tell him that they aren't behind the explosion, but Fred already knows this, thinking Xenia wouldn't have stayed in the building if she was the one that did it. Max thanks him for being so understanding, and he starts walking away, but Fred stops him, telling him that the kingdom is about to have a war with the Gamma Republic, seeing the bombing as a terrorist attack. Max doesn't seem to believe that the Republic is behind the attack, but Fred threatens to implicate him and the demons unless he agrees to fight for the kingdom, but Max doesn't seem to care, saying he can just join the Republic if that happens. Fred sees this as proof that Max wants to aid the terrorists, but Max reminds Fred that he defeated the Demon Lord, so he deserves to be treated with more respect. Fred tells him that he's no longer a hero, so Max threatens to join the Republic, and they start having a heated argument. Fred is about to get physical, but Diablo tells them to stop. Fred senses the power coming out of Diablo, so he lets Max go, as he inquires about Diablo's identity. But Max doesn't answer the question, and he proceeds to leave, telling Fred to pay the bill. At the Gamma Republic, they learn that they are being blamed for the bombing, and Annie thinks that the kingdom is trying to justify a war with them. Everyone is upset about this, and Leo says that they can't let this go unpunished, so they must prepare for war. Fred meets up with Grims, who tells him that the Republic is facing backlash because of the bombing incident. Grims thinks that there's no way to avoid war with the Republic, and he mentions Leo, who is a huge threat to them. He tells Fred that he is one of the 3 people capable of taking Leo down, thinking Max is a lost cause, and their other companion, Urea, is already retired, so Fred agrees to handle Leo. At the apartment, Max and Diablo watch the news, and they learn that the kingdom is going to attack the Republic. The reporters interview the civilians, and they all wonder where Max is, knowing he has the power to stop the conflict. While walking around the city, they stumble upon a girl, who Max used to play with. She wants to play with him, so he starts playing with the girl. After some time, the girl gives Diablo a racket, telling him to play with Max. Max tells her not to use her powers, so they go easy on each other, but as the game drags on, Diablo telepathically communicates with Max, reminding him that his friends are about to go to war. Max thinks it's none of his business, but Diablo tells him that his friends could die, asking him if he's just going to let that happen. The game becomes more intense, as Max insists that he will just leave his friends alone. Diablo thinks he wouldn't have said something like that in the past, as he unleashes his power, swinging with all of his might. The ball approaches Max with tremendous force, but Max returns it, saying people change after 10 years. The girl watches as the game drags on, and after some time, she applauds Max, saying he has gained her respect. She gives him a piece of candy, and she asks Diablo to teach her how to play. As Diablo trains her, Max wonders what the girl wants him to do. We see the kingdom's army assembled at the border, as Fred tells Galmoff to keep everyone in check. Galmoff becomes upset, because Fred wants to turn his soldiers into spectators, but Fred tells him that it is the best way to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Galmoff reminds Fred that he is the commanding officer, so Fred should listen to his orders, but Fred attacks him, telling him to just watch. He thinks that he will lose his position because of his actions, but he doesn't care, because he just wants to end things with Leo. He approaches the wall with his subordinates, and Vodka tells him that it's still protected by a barrier, but there is nobody inside. Fred summons his staff, and he uses it to strike the ground, creating a massive pillar of light, which obliterates a huge portion of the wall. A crater is left on the ground, and he orders everyone not to cross it, as he flies into the enemy territory. The news reporters notice flashes of light from a distance, as Grims watches the news, cheering for Fred as he fights, but he doesn't care if Fred loses, because everything is going according to plan, so he knows that the Republic is doomed. At that moment, his assistant tells him that she has terrible news, and she shows him that Fred is on a live stream, which is telling everyone that the kingdom is invading the Republic. He wonders how the media is getting the footage, as we see a drone flying in the air. Fred notices it, but he ignores it, and he continues to attack his enemies. Everyone is watching the live stream, and Grims is worried that he won't be able to come up with excuses because of it, so he orders his assistant to ban the account, but every time they remove the video, it immediately gets re-uploaded. The other ministers blame Grims for the mess, and they are worried that Fred is going to spill some of their secrets, so Reinhardt calls him, asking if he's behind the broadcast, but Grims denies this, saying he only convinced Fred to join the battle. We see the people behind the broadcast, as one of them reveals that she has prepared thousands of accounts just for this moment. The man in charge of the drone knows that Fred has seen the camera, but he wonders why Fred isn't destroying it. Fred encounters Leo, who reveals that he told his men not to interfere, so he apologizes for their actions. He asks Fred about Max, as he reveals that they fought, saying Max hasn't lost his touch. They decide to leave the drone alone, as Leo swings his sword with tremendous force, clearing the trees around the area. Fred casts a spell, which causes an earthquake, as the area around them extends to the sky. Everyone watches in disbelief, as a stage is set for their battle. In a flashback, we see Max fighting some skeletons with his party. More skeletons charge at them, but a massive explosion wipes them out, as Urea appears before them. Urea calls them hopeless, telling them to go home because she plans to defeat the Demon Lord on her own. As they continue with their journey, Max and his party keep encountering Urea, who helps them slay monsters. One evening, the party sets up camp, and Max invites Urea to join them, but she ignores him, telling them to go home because the demons are getting stronger. Urea says that she doesn't need friends, and she dashes away, as Leo wonders why she doesn't like them. She later encounters a powerful demon, who asks her if she wants to join him, but Urea declines the offer, claiming she's the only one who can slay the Demon Lord. The demon summons a massive pile of skeletons, which launches an attack, blowing her away, as the skeletons slowly make their way to her. But at that moment, Max and his friends appear, and Max launches a powerful attack, destroying the skeletons, causing the demon to retreat. Urea starts walking away, but Fred heals her, as Leo asks her if she's okay. She wonders why they saved her, so Fred tells her that they share the same goal, so they can't let her talent go to waste. Max considers her as a friend, but she attacks Max with her spell, as she agrees to join their party. Back in the present, Leo overpowers Fred, managing to land a hit, but Fred grabs him by the neck and attacks with a pillar of light, which brings Leo to his knees. Fred heals his wound, as Leo remembers how his healing spell has saved him countless times in the past. Leo wonders why Fred didn't bring Max or Urea with him, knowing he isn't good at close-range combat. Fred levitates as he surrounds himself with rings, and he calls the Republic trash as he attacks with beams of light. but Leo blocks them, revealing that he was banished to a wasteland, where he met his friends who helped him establish the Republic. He claims that the kingdom is trying to steal everything from them as he launches an attack, but Fred counters with a beam of light, which penetrates his chest. However, Leo endures it, and continues his attack, injuring Fred. Fred calls the war pointless, thinking it will never end, but Leo disagrees, saying he will get the kingdom to recognize their independence. At the apartment, Diablo watches the fight, as he comments that Leo and Fred are still as strong as they were 10 years ago, but he knows that they will eventually reach their limit. Max says he isn't interested in the fight, but Diablo tells him that they are his friends, and they're about to kill each other, asking him if he's just going to let that happen. Max suddenly grabs onto Diablo, as he reveals that he doesn't know whose side he should take, because he thinks that he will have to kill one of his friends if he gets involved. He lets Diablo go, and he falls silent, as Diablo decides to leave him to his own devices. Diablo bids Max farewell, and he flies away. Fred and Leo are about to continue their battle, when Diablo suddenly arrives. He makes his way to the camera, and he starts laughing, telling everyone that he's happy to see the humans fighting, as he declares that the Demon Lord has returned, but nobody takes him seriously. Max watches through the laptop, wondering what Diablo is thinking, as he attacks with a ball of dark energy, but Leo deflects it, and it ends up hitting him instead. However, Diablo refuses to give up, calling out to Max and asking him what he's waiting for. He implores Max to rise to the challenge, but Fred attacks him, causing him to fall. Max becomes enraged, saying he doesn't care what happens anymore. As the intense battle continues, Max rushes over, shaking the ground as he moves past the traffic. He jumps past the cars, and he starts flying to the border with ridiculous speed. The fight reaches its climax, with both Fred and Leo ready to die. But at that moment, Max dashes through the border, blowing everyone away. He jumps off his bike, ready to join the fight, but he ends up getting hit by his friends, causing them to stop fighting, and they wonder what he's doing there. In a flashback, we see Fred healing Leo, telling him that he's too reckless. Fred gives him an amulet, which has the power to counteract low-level magic, and he is grateful for this, but Fred tells him that he should use it, because healing him is becoming a hassle. Yuria wonders why Fred isn't being honest, because she knows that he is worried about Leo, but she thinks that Leo is also terrible, because he doesn't realize that Fred actually cares for him. She watches them as they begin to argue, telling Max that he needs to interfere if anything happens between them, but he questions his capabilities, knowing that it's a huge responsibility. We return to the present, and we see the people wondering who Max is, unable to recognize him as the great hero, because he looks so old. The reporters interview George, who tells everyone to remain calm, because the situation poses no danger to the citizens of the kingdom. But a reporter tells him that Max has joined the battle, and he is surprised to hear this. Fred asks Max why he showed up, and Leo thinks that he's there to help a kingdom in crisis, but this makes Fred upset, telling Leo that he isn't a big deal. They begin to argue, as they both claim that they are fighting for what's right, but Max tells them to shut up, saying they are getting on his nerves, so he's going to defeat both of them. Fred tells him to mind his own business, but he tells them to go to hell, and the situation becomes tense, so they decide to have a fight, where the last man standing wins. Fred uses his rings to attack Max, but he slices through them with tremendous force, covering the area in smoke. Leo charges at him, kicking him away and pressuring him with a series of attacks, commenting that Max has gotten slower compared to his prime. But Max activates his skill, launching a powerful slash, but he completely misses, and Leo lands a hit on him, bringing him to his knees. Leo is about to finish him off, but Fred blasts the area, revealing that he is disappointed, because Max didn't put up a good fight. Fred proceeds to launch a series of magical blasts, destroying the area around Max, and the relentless assault continues, until he falls to the ground. Everyone starts to wonder if he's dead, and he realizes that he doesn't stand a chance, but a voice tells him not to give up. In a flashback, we see the heroes facing a powerful behemoth, and they are all struggling against it. Max tells them not to give up, but Fred wonders how they can defeat the monster, because none of their attacks are working against it. He thinks that they are going to lose, but Yuria hits him, saying they should fight with everything they have. She unleashes her powers, and she stores it in a marble, which she forces down Max's throat, causing him to release a powerful energy, as Yuria explains that he has entered a state called maximum drive, but it won't last long, so he needs to defeat the behemoth while he still has the chance. The behemoth attacks them, but Leo blocks the blast, and Max charges at it, delivering a powerful blow. Back in the present, Max takes the candy, which he got from the girl, but it's actually Uriah's marble. He quickly consumes it, causing a pillar of light to pierce the sky, as his body starts overflowing with energy. An image of Uriah appears, revealing that she left a recorded message, and she tells him to defeat Leo and Fred before the effect wears off. She reveals that she can't join the fight because she's pregnant, but she believes that Max will be able to deal with them. Fred is about to attack, but Max blows him away. He summons multiple rings, firing countless projectiles at Max, but he dodges all of them, and he slices through the rings with blinding speed. Fred uses all of his energy to launch a powerful beam of light, but Max cuts it in half. Fred realizes that he's in danger, so he erects a barrier, but Max easily destroys it, releasing a shockwave that blows him away. Max starts fighting with Leo, kicking him away and attacking with tremendous strength, causing the ground to shatter. The intense battle continues in midair, and they start exchanging blows, destroying the stage in the process. Meanwhile, William sees Diablo on the ground, so he helps Diablo up, and he instantly asks about Max. As the fight drags on, Leo's blade is destroyed, so he starts fighting with his fists. Fred observes the battle from a distance, blaming Leo and Max for the situation they're in. He thinks that Max won't be able to accomplish anything even if he wins, and Uriah just made things worse by helping him, so Fred thinks that his friends are idiots. The fight reaches its climax, and Max delivers a decisive blow, causing Leo to collapse. But Max senses a powerful energy as Fred summons a massive ball of light, preparing to wipe them out. However, a dark energy beam destroys it as Diablo joins the fight. Fred realizes that Diablo really is the Demon Lord, and Max hits him with a powerful swing, causing them to crash to the ground. Max is the last man standing, but everyone wonders if this is a good thing, because nobody knows what he wants. He grabs onto Fred and Leo, and he takes them to where the camera can see them. He suddenly apologizes, knowing he and his friends have caused a mess, and he begs the viewers to tell him what he should do, because he wants the conflict to end without violence. Max returns to the apartment, where Diablo gives him a treat, calling him amazing, because he saved his friends, and ensured a future for the kingdom and the Republic. He says that he couldn't have done it alone, so he thanks Diablo for helping him out. At that moment, Xania enters the apartment, and she starts begging for forgiveness. She reveals that she was using her laptop to analyze the data from the Magic Bureau when the data was stolen by a virus, but Diablo isn't bothered, saying he has already forgotten about it. Xania wonders why they're celebrating, so he shows her the news, and we learn that Max's actions shifted public opinion, changing the relationship between the Kingdom and the Republic. The Kingdom recognized Gamma as an autonomous territory, and Max became popular because of his heroic deeds. Leo dashes through the forest, clearing the trees with ridiculous speed, as everyone builds a road that connects Gamma to the Kingdom. Annie gives the soldiers tea, reminding them that they are all part of the same kingdom. She reveals that Leo's group is happy about this, because they never wanted to establish their own country, and they were only fighting to protect the land that they worked hard to develop. At the Magic Bureau, we learn Lem was the one who stole the data from Xania. She gives it to Fred, but it just turns out to be the footage from when Max was making videos. But the video suddenly glitches, as the ghost makes its way to him. This causes him to freak out, as the ghost comes out of the monitor, grabbing onto his face. We see the ministers in a meeting, talking about how Max's video changed the situation. Fred joins them in the room, and George reminds him that he used magic to attack Galmoth, so he needs to be punished for this. Fred says that he is ready to face whatever punishment is fit for him, so Reinhardt tells him that he should resign from his position as chief secretary. Fred agrees to this, but Reinhardt still thinks there was something strange about the explosion at the Bureau, and Grimm suggests that it could be a magical experiment gone wrong. Reinhardt wonders what Fred has to say about this, thinking he must be behind the explosion, so Fred concludes that the ministers are going to turn him into a scapegoat, but he tells them to go ahead. The police enter the room, but they walk past Fred, and they make their way to Grimm's. They tell him that he's under arrest, which is a surprise to him, as he claims he wasn't behind the explosion, but they tell him that he is wanted for embezzling public funds. We learn that there is an unknown source that has been sending out data, and it includes a financial report from the Magic Bureau, where the police learn that the Bureau's budget was being deposited to his account. So the other ministers disparage him, saying he doesn't deserve to be one of them, and the police start taking him away. He tells Fred that he didn't expect to be making such a bland exit, saying he is happy for Fred because his friends survived, and he helped to avoid the war. But Grimm tells him that he isn't a real man, calling him a loser who is tied down by his past. Minister Trigger wonders if Fred leaked the data that led to Grims's arrest, and he says that he didn't do it, but he recalls that Xania broke into the bureau, so he realizes that she must be the one behind it. The Minsters note that they now have an open slot, so they offer Fred the position, thinking he has done so much for the kingdom, and Fred considers the offer. Meanwhile, Max walks around the city, trying to keep a low profile, but he gets ambushed by the reporters, and they start pestering him with questions. He tells them that he's busy, quickly jumping away, but the reporters continue to pursue him. We see Yuria watching them from a bench, and we learn that the girl who gave Max the candy is actually her daughter. Max returns to his apartment, where he learns that Diablo was watching him escape from the reporters, as Xania reveals that he was all over the news. He tells the demons that they should leave, because they are his mortal enemies, and he is back to being a hero, but Diablo tells him that he's still not the hero he used to be, reminding him that he won't be able to eat delicious food if they leave. Max is conflicted, thinking of all their food. He has no choice but to agree to let them stay, but that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. In a world where everything is ranked, and everyone is trying to be number one, the story begins on Academy Island, where the transfer student Hiroto Shinohara addresses the school as the newest 7-star student. As he introduces himself, he arrogantly declares that he's better than everyone, challenging the other students to take him on. However, this is revealed to be a lie, and immediately after his speech, he starts to panic, wondering what he should do next. Hiroto checks his phone, as he realizes that everyone now views him as a loser, which makes him feel overwhelmed. We learn that the students' ranks are determined by the number of stars they collect, and the most efficient way to acquire stars is by playing games against other students, so the authorities recommend this method to reach the coveted rank of 7 stars. Hiroto reveals that he doesn't even want to become a 7-star student, so he wonders why this is happening to him. A few hours earlier, Hiroto got lost while he was looking for the academy, and a beautiful girl named Sarsa caught his eyes, so he called up to her, asking for directions. She tells him he is in the wrong district, as she checks his phone, pointing at his academy's location. Sarsa tells him not to be so formal, since they are both in the 2nd year, revealing that his device displays his academy information to those with a higher rank. Hiroto said he skipped the tutorial, so Sarsa gives him an introduction, explaining that the phone has its own social media app called Stock, which he can use to communicate with the other students. She teaches him how to send a game request, and leads him to the right district, but she realized that it's time for her to return to her academy, so she bids him farewell. However, as she walks away, the sprinkler suddenly sprays water at her. This makes her upset, as she wonders if Hiroto planned this, accusing him of leading her on. Hiroto tries to deny this, but Sarsa interrupts him, saying he is trying to take advantage of her. She challenges him to a game, which he accepts, telling her to listen to him when it's over. Sarsa tells him to send a game request, since the request must come from the lower-ranked player, and he complies, but he wasn't able to set the game details. Sarsa explains that the lower-ranked player gets to pick the game, so they aren't disadvantaged, but Hiroto sent her a blank request, so he must think he can beat her at anything, but this isn't the case, since Hiroto didn't even know how to use the device. Because of this, Sarsa picks the game, and she chooses to have a turn-based staring contest with him, where the player who has any form of reaction loses. Sarsa explains that during each turn, a player gets to make an expression in an attempt to make the opponent react, and Hiroto is ready to start right away, which surprises Sarsa, because he didn't even set an ability. She explains that abilities can heavily influence the game, so she thinks Hiroto isn't taking her seriously. Hiroto has 1 minute to get her to react, but Sarsa uses her time manipulation ability to reduce it to 10 seconds. This surprises him, and his turn is over before he can even do anything. Sarsa uses another ability, creating a beam sword, which she uses to attack him, trying to make him show his exhaustion, and we see other students start to watch their game. Sarsa is glad her clothes are drying off, but the sprinkler suddenly sprays at her again, which makes her sword disappear, as her clothes get wet again. Sarsa reveals she was about to have her orientation ceremony, and she was meant to give a speech as the academy representative, but she thinks about having to do it while soaking wet. Her turn ends, and she accuses Hiroto of setting up the sprinkler, but Hiroto says it was just a coincidence. She feels the other students staring at her, and she gets embarrassed, telling them all to stop looking, but this ends up causing her to lose the game, and her star gets transferred to Hiroto. At that moment, a butler calls out to Hiroto, informing him that Headmistress Natsumi wanted to see him. He goes to her office, and Natsumi tells him he made quite the mess, saying he broke an important rule. She claims he used underhanded methods to defeat the student of another academy, which usually isn't an issue, but she reveals that his opponent achieved the highest entrance exam score in her academy, and as the top student on the island, she has never lost before. She is from the Saionji family, who are the founders of the Academy Island, and her grandfather Masamune is the current head director of the island, so she is considered as a VIP. Natsumi reveals Hiroto barely passed the entrance exam, which gives him a very low status, but he ended up defeating Sarsa, so this could offend Masamune. She claims the director would do anything to protect his family's name, but she suggests the academy can save him by turning him into a 7-star student. Natsumi explains that if Sarsa was defeated by another 7-star student, Masamune wouldn't be as upset, but Hiroto says he doesn't deserve the status, because he's only at 1 star. However, Natsumi tells him to look at his star, and he realizes that it's red, which is strange because it's supposed to be white. Natsumi explains that it's a special star, which allows the holder to tell one lie about anything, so she asks him to use that lie to turn himself into a fake 7-star student. Natsumi further explains that not many people are aware of the red star's effect, but she knows about it because she used to have one in her possession. Natsumi reveals her plan is to make him look like a genius who made it to 7 stars on his first day, but she also gives him the option to leave the academy instead. Hiroto thinks about his goal to find a certain someone, so he ends up choosing to go along with her plan. Back in the present, Natsumi laughs at Hiroto, calling his speech the perfect psychological scam. She has arranged a dorm for him, giving him the location, so he immediately leaves to go there. While on his way, Sarsa drags him into an alley, saying he heard his speech, so she wonders what he's up to. Sarsa thinks he's planning to reveal her secret, so she begs him to stop, saying she has her reasons for lying. Hiroto has no idea what she's talking about, but Sarsa tells him not to play dumb, as she reveals that she isn't the real Sarsa. She has been acting as Sarsa's double at the academy, and her real name is Rina. Rina thinks her secret is out because he took the red star from her, saying the holder of the red star gets to know the lie of the previous holder, but Hiroto says he didn't know her secret until she told it to him. He admits that he's a total noob, but Rina doesn't believe him because he already has 7 stars. Hiroto tells her he's been using the red star to lie about this, and that he's actually at the lowest rank, but he also has his reasons for lying. This makes Rina surprised, as she realizes that he only won their game by accident, and that she just revealed her secret to him. But Hiroto is also surprised, since she isn't really the granddaughter of the director, so there was no reason for him to lie about being a 7-star student. He arrives at his dorm, which is revealed to be a mansion, and a girl named Yuki welcomes him inside. She introduces herself as his new assistant, saying she'll be staying in that house. Yuki reveals she doesn't like Natsumi, and Hiroto can relate to her, so she thinks they'll be able to get along. She secretly gives him a detailed explanation about the island, revealing that there are 20 academies on the island, and they get ranked every year. The academy receives benefits depending on its ranking, which is determined by the number of stars its students have. She explains that students with 5 stars are considered advanced students, and the more advanced students an academy has, the higher it will rank. And an academy with a 7-star student will almost certainly reach the top rank, which is why 7-star students are being targeted by everyone on the island. She shows him the game results of Rina, but she knows it would be impossible for Hiroto to replicate such a record, because Rina was able to use level 7 abilities, whereas he can only use level 1 abilities because his true rank is only 1 star, which puts him at a disadvantage against the other players. However, Yuki says the company will help him win games, as long as he continues to act like a 7-star student. She shows him the game requests, and he is surprised to see that he already has 42. She helps him pick an opponent, saying he needs to make an impression, because there are people who are still doubting his abilities. Hiroto wonders how he's going to win, and she tells him they're going to cheat, telling him to wear an earpiece. The company's head of electronics, Kagaya, uses it to communicate with him, and Yuki reveals that Kagaya is a hacker, so she can hack his opponent's device to give Hiroto the advantage. Hiroto calls it a sneaky tactic, and Yuki says it goes against the rules, but he is determined to do whatever it takes to be the strongest, so he chooses to go along with the plan. The next day, he defeats his opponent with the company's help, and he walks to the alley, thinking it was too easy. He realizes how reliable they are, so he now believes in the company. Later, we see Hiroto walking around the campus when the company informs him about a favorable game request from a student named Haru. He goes to an arena, where the announcer introduces Haru and Hiroto to everyone. Rina is welcomed as the special guest, and Haru challenges Hiroto to an anything-goes 100-meter race, saying he'll never beat her speed. She brings out her bike, which Rina thinks is her secret weapon, because vehicle performance is the key to winning the game, but Hiroto is still on foot, so everyone wonders what he's thinking. We learn players are able to bring 3 abilities to a game, and Hiroto hopes she didn't pick the Nullify Interference ability, but Haru reveals she is using it, saying his abilities are now useless. They begin the game, and Haru's vehicle dashes to the finish line, but it suddenly comes to a stop, launching her into the air. She is saved as a foam softens her landing, and Hiroto claims he has seen through her strategy. We learn that Yuki advised him to use 3 disable abilities to counter the opponent's Nullify Interference, saying he needs 3 disable abilities because his level is too low. As Hiroto walks past Haru, he claims he used a level 7 disable ability to counter her nullification, and then used a force stop ability to stop her bike. But in reality, it was Kagaya's hacking skills that stopped the bike. He also lies about using a protection ability to soften her landing, when it was really Kagaya who did this, and he crosses the finish line, allowing him to win the game. After the match, Rina approaches him, telling him she's going to beat him, as she gives him a note, telling him to meet her afterwards. Before he goes there, he tells Yuki to stop listening for a while, so she disables the monitoring, telling him to be careful. He meets up with Rina in a secluded cafe, and he asks her about her secret. Rina reveals that the real Sarsa was kidnapped over a year ago, but the kidnapper didn't have any demands. Since she was Sarsa's friend, she was asked to take her place, to see what move the kidnapper would make. She reveals that the children of the Saionji family almost never go outside until they reach high school, so friends are provided for them, and she happened to be chosen as one of them. Because of this, the public doesn't know Sarsa's real face, and it was easy for Rina to take her place. She doesn't know when the real Sarsa would return, but she wants to protect Sarsa's reputation until then, asking Hiroto to help protect her secret. Rina doesn't want Hiroto to lose, because the holder of the red star will learn about her secret. She adds that Natsumi is protecting her because she is convinced that she's the real Sarsa, and this makes Hiroto realize that he would get kicked out of the island if her secret comes out. He tells her about the childhood friend he's looking for, saying she is somewhere on the island, so he can't get kicked out until he finds her. With their goals aligned, they decide to form an alliance, and they exchange IDs to stay in touch. The next day, he comes across Rina, and they act smug toward each other, when suddenly, they see a strange man laughing as he looks down on them. The man jumps down, introducing himself as Kugasaki, and he addresses Sarsa as his goddess. He challenges Hiroto to a game, wanting to see what he's truly made of, and Hiroto agrees to accept on the condition that the loser can never bother Sarsa again. Kugasaki doesn't like the bet, but Hiroto calls him a chicken. Kugasaki says he isn't afraid of anything, as he reveals he is more than just a 5-star student, but also the leader of the Holy Knight Brigade. So he agrees to the condition, setting the game to take place in 2 days' time. The next day, we see Hiroto and Rina meeting while in disguise. Rina thanks him for standing up for her, but he says he was just protecting his own lie. Rina reminds him that their lies are now linked, so they head back to Hiroto's house for a strategy meeting. Yuki greets them, but Rina is surprised to see her. We learn that Yuki actually used to serve her, and she's one of the few people that know her secret. Yuki goes on to explain the game that Kugasaki has proposed. It's a game where you collect cards and compete for numbers. There are 2 phases to the game. The first phase is collection, where players must search for cards numbered from 0 to 19 that are scattered around the district. 5 cards will be placed randomly at the start, and then after every 5 minutes, a new card location is revealed. At the end of the phase, players select 5 of their cards to form a hand. The second phase is the reveal, where players compare cards one by one, and the higher number wins. Yuki also notes that in the history of the game, there has never been a record of someone with 1 star winning the game. Hiroto wonders how that can be possible, and Rina reminds him of the ability she used to reduce his time in their game. It allowed her to manipulate numerical values in a game, and she says that even if he got the number 19, Kugasaki could use the ability to make his number worth 30, so Yuki estimates that he has less than a 1% chance of winning. Hiroto thinks Yuki must have a way to help him win, and she reveals the trick to winning is during the collection phase. If they can obstruct his movements to buy time, and make a hand that will win even if after the numerical adjustment ability, then Hiroto has a chance. Rina notes that Kugasaki always uses the emergency mobilization ability, which allows him to summon another player to help him, and they are also able to contribute one ability. So when all the summoned players all use the same ability, Kugisaki is able to summon his army of 300 simps from his Holy Knight Brigade. They also know that for his third ability, Kugisaki has an Indigo Star, which gives him the Black Wings ability that Rina mentions he always likes to use. The game begins the next day, and thanks to using the luck ability, Hiroto starts near 2 of the higher numbers. He plans his route, planning to grab the 14 first. As he runs, he notes that the 17 is quite far away, but Yuki tells him the company has hacked a bus to help him get there. They receive a notification that Kugisaki has picked up his first card, but Hiroto finds it strange because the cards being displayed haven't changed. Yuki thinks he must have found a card that was yet to be revealed, meaning he's using a different ability from what they predicted. Hiroto realizes that instead of using the numerical manipulation ability, Kugisaki plans to collect all of the cards instead. At that moment, Kugisaki interrupts his call, revealing his Black Wings ability allows him to transmit his voice from far away, and claims he has already won. After 5 minutes into the game, the next card location is meant to be revealed, but nothing appears, because it was the mystery card that Kugisaki already picked up. Hiroto realizes Kugisaki planned to find all the cards before they're revealed, planning to collect 18 out of the 20 cards, and secure his victory during the collection phase. As Hiroto rushes to his card, Yuki notes that their bus was stopped by Kugisaki's army. Yuki starts to lose hope, but Hiroto refuses to give up. He manages to get number 14, but he wonders how he'll be able to make it to 17 before Kugisaki gets to it. At that moment, Haru suddenly appears, saying Natsumi helped her get a permit, so she's allowed to give him a ride. Hiroto looks for the 17, and Yuki tells him it's on the 3rd floor. He ends up finding it, but it's in the middle of the air. He manages to stretch out and grab it, but he ends up falling down, barely managing to survive. Meanwhile, we see Kugisaki has collected most of the other cards, so things are looking bad for Hiroto. Hiroto thinks he needs to get one more card, but Rina suddenly appears, saying he needs to get medical attention. But Hiroto thinks about his childhood friend, refusing to give up, and he wants to protect Rina as well. As he tries to leave, Rina reveals she lied about Sarsa. She lied about her being kidnapped, because in reality, she just wanted to experience a normal life, so Rina only made it look like she was kidnapped. She tells him to just give up, saying she will take the blame for everything, but knowing she's doing it all for the sake of her friend, he calls her his type, telling her to keep up her act for a little longer. Yuki arrives, worried about him, and she mentions Kugisaki has already collected the other 18 cards, so it looks like it's all over for Hiroto, but he still doesn't give up, thinking of a way to turn the tables. Hiroto asks if there's an ability that allows you to change the rules of a game. Yuki mentions the rule breaker ability, but says it's only available to students that are 6 stars or above. Hiroto gets an idea, saying the important thing is that it exists. They arrive at the arena for the reveal phase, and Kugisaki thinks he's already won since Hiroto doesn't have enough cards to win 3 rounds. Kugisaki tells him to just give up, so Hiroto discards his card, admitting defeat. The announcer is about to call the game, but Hiroto suddenly stops her. He asks Kugisaki about the condition to end the game, which is if both players run out of cards, then the game will end. Hiroto tells him to read the rules closer, and using his screen glitch ability, the rules now say that if either player runs out of cards, the game will end. Kugisaki thinks Hiroto must have used the rule breaker ability to change the rules, and since he no longer has any cards, the reveal phase is over, and they draw with 0 points each, essentially restarting the game. Kugisaki discards his hand, but reminds Hiroto he still doesn't stand a chance against his army of simps. However, Hiroto declares his victory, as he reveals he only discarded 1 card. Kugisaki thinks it doesn't matter, because the game will still be a draw based on the rules, but Hiroto reveals he didn't actually change the rules. He plays his card, and since Kugisaki no longer has any cards, Hiroto is declared the winner. After the game, Hiroto gets treated for his injury, and Rina comes to visit him. She thinks he has been hiding his real abilities, admitting she wouldn't have been able to win if she were in the same position. She wonders what he meant when he called her his type, but Hiroto is suddenly on the phone. He wonders what she was saying, making her embarrassed, but she is glad everything worked out. Hiroto says it was a piece of cake, calling himself the strongest 7-star student, but Rina calls him the biggest liar. Yuki meets up with Natsumi, who asks her about Hiroto's rank. Yuki thinks he is still at 1 star, because he can't gain new stars as a fake 7-star student, but Natsumi tells her she's wrong, revealing he's already at 2 stars. She explains that when a unique star holder is defeated, the star is always taken away, so when Hiroto defeated Kugisaki, he was able to acquire the indigo star. She thinks that Hiroto could become an all-color 7-star student by defeating more unique star holders, saying he demonstrated his skills in the last game. Natsumi states that Hiroto will face greater danger if he keeps gaining unique stars, but Yuki tells her not to worry because she will stay by her master's side. Yuki transfers to their academy, and the teacher informs everyone about the all-campus elimination battle. She explains that during the event, the students can participate in mock games, where they can challenge anyone regardless of rank, and stars will not be exchanged. However, if they are defeated, they will be eliminated from the event, saying the last man standing will be crowned as the winner. She explains that the event will determine who will be representing their academy in the upcoming contest between academies, saying the top 5 players will be chosen, so she wants everyone to do their best. During their break, Yuki warns Hiroto that he will be at a disadvantage during the event, because he is a 7-star student, so everyone will want to challenge him. She explains that a challenger can simply approach a student and issue a challenge, which will automatically be accepted. This will place the participants in a state of conflict, where no student can issue a challenge to either of them until a winner is decided, but if the state of conflict continues for 24 hours without a game taking place, they will be eliminated. Yuki tells him that he must not lose, because he needs to keep his spot as the strongest player, so she advises him to stay away from other players during the event. A third-year student named Noah suddenly approaches them, and Hiroto asks her what she wants. She asks them if they're dating, and they deny this, so she clings to Hiroto, telling him it's his chance to snuggle with her. Hiroto tells her to get to the point, so she tells him about the elimination battle predicted rankings, where she is close to the top, but Hiroto has the number 1 spot. Hiroto doesn't seem to care, and she bids him farewell, thanking him for spending time with her. Yuki warns him to be wary of her, because she's one of the 3 6-star students in the academy, and Yuki even gets a bad feeling when she's around her. Hiroto goes to Natsumi's office, where she tells Hiroto that they are currently faced with 2 issues. The first issue is that there are outside forces getting involved in the upcoming event, and they seem to be after Hiroto, since he's the 7-star student. While the second issue has something to do with the unique stars, as she explains that each academy has one, but the unique star in their possession, the green star, has been stolen. They were planning to use it as the prize for the event, and she reveals that the green star has the power to affect perception, so she doesn't know what the thief could do with it. Natsumi doesn't know if the 2 issues are connected, but she thinks it's possible that they were done by the same person, and she asks for Hiroto's help to root out the culprit, thinking he's going to be targeted during the event. She wants him to stay alive during the contest, so that he can expose the culprit and recover the green star. Natsume also wants him to score a decisive victory, so that he can keep his position as the strongest on Academy Island. During the first day of the event, Hiroto and Yuki realize that he is being targeted by everyone, so they go into hiding, as Yuki thinks about disabling their ability to track his location, and blocking their challenge requests with some basic jamming. Later that day, Hiroto receives a message from Noah, thinking that their jamming didn't work. A girl challenges him to play with her, as Hiroto wonders if Noah is targeting him directly. Hiroto accepts the challenge, and he ends up winning the game. Hiroto tells Yuki that he is worried about Noah, thinking he'll have to face her at the end of the event. Yuki agrees with him, saying they won't be able to avoid her, so she calls for Kagaya, who tells Hiroto that he's going to have a hard time running away with the programs they have, so she wrote a new device ability. She overlapped Hiroto's location with Yuki's, so that she will receive the challenges instead of him. The next day, Yuki defeats a player who is after Hiroto, as he runs and hides from the other students. While hiding, he receives a call from Yuki, telling him that they're in trouble, because 200 students are making their way to his location. Hiroto tries to escape from them, but he suddenly bumps into Noah, and he falls on top of her, as Kagaya wonders why she's there, because there was no signal a second ago. Yuki catches up to Hiroto, as Noah clings to him, stopping him from running away. The other students are closing in, so Yuki sends Hiroto a challenge request, preventing them from challenging him. Noah is disappointed because they were able to escape, but she tells Hiroto that she was able to achieve her number 1 goal. Hiroto wonders what she meant, but she plays dumb, and she starts running away. They return to the mansion, where Yuki prepares a cutlet for Hiroto, but she realizes that they have no sauce, so she leaves for the store to buy it. Hiroto waits for her to return, but after an hour, he receives a call from Yuki's number. He answers the call, and he hears Noah's voice, telling him that she bumped into his maid. She gives the phone to Yuki, who tells him that she won't be able to return home. Hiroto wonders if Noah did something to her, but Yuki tells him that she can't answer that question, and she reminds him that they're in a state of conflict, telling him that he shouldn't try to win during their game tomorrow. Noah assures him that she didn't do anything to Yuki, and she ends the call. Hiroto tells Rina about the situation, so she becomes upset, saying she won't forgive Noah for kidnapping Yuki. Hiroto thinks there might be someone else involved, and Rina wonders how they can win without Yuki's help. At that moment, Kagaya joins them, and Hiroto informs her about the situation, saying they need to come up with a way to save Yuki. Kagaya shows them the game they'll be playing, which is a card game where each player will be using 10 cards. Each card has a value, and whoever plays the higher card gets to collect both cards. When all cards have been played, the player who collects more cards wins. Each player starts with 10 cards, and with one bonus card on the board, there's a total of 21 cards in the game. Kagaya shows them a chart to explain the value of the cards, and Hiroto immediately notices the commoners, because they're too weak, so Kagaya explains that commoners have special skills to make up for their weakness. At that moment, Hiroto receives a message from Yuki, which lists the abilities she'll be using for the game. One of the abilities mentioned is Force Control, which will allow Yuki to control his moves for the first 3 turns. Kagaya is sad because Yuki isn't there to come up with a strategy, but Rina says she'll take care of it, claiming she's also good at developing strategies. She predicts that after the 3rd turn, her lead over him will be devastating, so she suggests using the enchant ability to give a commoner the ability to turn the game around. Kagaya leaves to make preparations for the game, as Hiroto remembers how Yuki told him that he shouldn't try to win, which is really bothering him. As Hiroto lies on his bed, Rina decides to stay over, saying she can't return to her place because it's past her curfew. She appears to be nervous, so Hiroto tells her that she can sleep in a different room, but she tells him that she doesn't want to be alone because she'll feel anxious. Hiroto turns off the lights, but neither of them can fall asleep, so they start talking about the island, and Rina gives him an ability card, which allows him to install a rare ability called Pinch Hitter. She tells him to use it when he sees the chance, as she reveals that she believes in him, saying even Noah will have a hard time against him. Meanwhile, Noah is reading a message, and we learn that she's working with someone to target Hiroto. She seems to dislike Hiroto because of the speech he delivered when he first arrived at the academy, so she's determined to beat him. Hiroto and Yuki are making their way to the venue of their game, when they stumble upon Noah, who decides to watch their game. They sit together in a room, where they start their game. Yuki activates the abilities she told Hiroto about, allowing her to control his cards during the first 3 turns. She starts by killing one of his commoner cards, allowing her to collect the bonus card, then she activates a commoner's skill, allowing her to remove one of Hiroto's cards from the game, but she wastes it on another commoner. During the 3rd turn, she kills his king using her commoner, allowing her to collect 7 cards. Hiroto immediately realizes that something is wrong, because Yuki appears to be going easy on him. He speculates that Yuki is guiding him, because there's something wrong with their game. He thinks about how Yuki told him that he shouldn't try to win, but it's obvious that she's not trying to win either, so he concludes that she wants the game to end in a draw. He tells Kagaya to abort the operation, and he activates the Afterthought ability, which allows him to see Yuki's next move. Hiroto learns that she'll be using a knight, but he uses an assassin card, causing him to lose that turn. This makes Noah confused, wondering why he's playing like that, as he intentionally loses in the succeeding turns. During the last turn, the effect of the Afterthought ability wears off, and Yuki is left with the Queen and Assassin cards, as he tells her that he's holding onto a commoner card. He uses the card, thinking it's all over if she plays the Assassin, but he believes in Yuki, so he is confident that she's going to use the Queen. He is right about Yuki, so his commoner ends up losing, but its ability is activated, allowing him to collect half of the cards in her collection. They both end up with 10 cards, causing the game to end in a draw. Noah isn't happy with the result, and she is about to walk away, but Hiroto grabs onto her, telling her to confess, because he knows that she's been targeting him. Noah tries to deny this, but Yuki reveals that she has an illegal spying ability on her phone, which was installed by Noah. We learn that this was installed the previous night, and she used it to manipulate Yuki into doing what she did. Yuki explains that the ability would have transferred to the winner if she lost, as she continues to expose Noah's wrongdoings. Noah throws a tantrum, saying she works so hard to set everything up, as she accuses Hiroto of using dirty tricks to reach the top. Noah reminds Hiroto about the elimination battle predicted rankings, revealing there was a survey before that, where the students were asked who will become the school's ace. Noah was at the top spot back then, but as soon as Hiroto entered the school, he immediately surpassed her. This caused Noah to fall into despair, because she tried so hard to build herself up, only for Hiroto to take the #1 spot in an instant, so she decided to get her revenge. During her exposition, Noah slips up, and mentions that she made a deal with someone. Hiroto inquires about this, but she tells them that she has a backup plan, saying the ability she installed will delete the data on Yuki's device with the press of a button, and if her data is deleted, she won't be able to stay on the Academy Island. But Yuki warns her that everyone on the island will turn on her if they learn about her illegal ability. Noah suddenly rushes to Yuki, and she quickly ties her up, taking her as a hostage. She tells Hiroto that if he wants Yuki to stay, he must lose to her in a game, and give her all of his stars, saying she knows that everything about him is a lie. Hiroto wonders why she knows so much, thinking the green star must have enhanced her perception. She challenges him to a treasure hunt, and Hiroto ends up accepting this. They start playing the game, as Noah calls Hiroto, asking him if his partner is hiding on the 3rd floor or below. Hiroto wonders why she asked him a question, not knowing about the rules of the game, so Noah tells him that he can use the question command once per turn, to ask a yes or no question, explaining that he will lose if he lies. Hiroto tells her the answer is no, so she proceeds with her move, saying they can move 3 spaces each turn. Noah moves 1 space, and she ends her turn, but she reveals that she's using an ability called double action, which allows her to have 2 turns in a row. She asks him another question, asking him if his partner is hiding on the 5th floor or above. He tells her the answer is no, so she knows that his partner is on the 4th floor, and she moves another space, wanting to toy with Hiroto. During his turn, Hiroto uses his delay ability, extending the time for his turn, then he contacts his partner, who is revealed to be Rina in disguise. They discuss the rules of the game, and we learn that their goal is to find the opponent's partner, who is hiding in one of the rooms. There are 4 commands available each turn, which are question, move, answer, and retreat. The first 2 commands were used by Noah, and the third option, answer, is used for opening the locked door when they're in front of the room, but this consumes one of the 3 answer points that they are given at the beginning of the game. The retreat command allows their partner to move to another room, so that their opponent won't be able to find them, but this also consumes an answer point. Rina wonders what Hiroto plans to do, because if he wins, Yuki won't be able to stay on the island, but if he loses, it's all over for him. Hiroto seems to have a plan, knowing they can't win in a fair fight, because Noah is using illegal abilities, so they will have to play dirty. The game continues, as he receives a call from Kagaya, who tells him that she can't interfere, because Noah used an area barrier ability on the whole school. She knows that they can use the device sensing program to find the right room, but it must be done by someone inside, someone who can reprogram one of the devices. Rina is able to do it, and she reveals Yuki's location, so Hiroto asks Noah if Yuki is in that room. Noah confirms this, wondering if he used a cheat, but he denies this, and moves closer to Yuki. Noah decides to take him seriously, as she correctly guesses his partner's location. She moves closer to Rina's room, and she uses the retreat command to move Yuki to a different room. The signal from Yuki's device is lost, as she reveals that she had to cut off all access to her device. She starts walking to another room, and Hiroto tells her that it's going to get really cold at 10 p.m., so she should try to keep the room warm. Hiroto tells Rina that Noah appears to be reading his moves, thinking it must be because of the green stars effect. But he knows that she makes mistakes when someone else becomes involved in his moves, so he will need Rina's help to defeat her. Hiroto uses an answer point to move Rina to another room, and thanks to Rina's critical thinking skills, they were able to figure out Yuki's hiding spot. This makes Noah upset, so she thinks about making Yuki's next hiding spot random. Noah figures out which floor Rina is on, and she gets closer to her location. Rina thinks they're in a tight spot, but Hiroto reveals that he has set something up, saying he has figured out a way to end the game. However, he is worried that it might not work out, because Noah's third ability is still unknown. Hiroto decides to kill time during his turns, saying it will help them find where Yuki is hiding. Noah and Hiroto use their second answer point to make their partners retreat, leaving them with 1 point each. Hiroto stalls for time, and at exactly 10 p.m., Rina sends Yuki's location to him, which is close to his current location. Noah wonders how Hiroto found out, so he tells her that he gave a message to Yuki, ordering her to turn on the air conditioning at 10 p.m. He reveals that Rina is in the staff room, so she can monitor which air conditioner is turned on. Hiroto uses his last answer point to open the door to Yuki's room, but Noah tells him that the game isn't over yet, because her third ability allows her to alter fate, and she uses it to invalidate Hiroto's answer. She quickly makes her way to the staff room, where she finds Rina, thinking she has finally won against Hiroto, but Rina removes her disguise, telling Noah that she's too weak to defeat Hiroto. She states that Noah really won the game, but at that moment, Hiroto and Yuki arrive, revealing that they used the pinch hitter ability card to switch places, so the player she beat was actually Yuki. Yuki reminds Noah about the illegal spying ability, saying it will now transfer to Noah's phone, because she won against her, so she can no longer take Yuki as a hostage. Noah falls to her knees, utterly defeated, and then starts telling them how she got onto the island thanks to her intellectual ability. But when she entered the academy, she realized that everyone is from a good lineage. Because of this, she had a hard time blending in, so she worked really hard to be the top student, wanting to become special, but Hiroto took that away from her. She reveals she made a deal with a man named Mikado, who is the headmaster of the Seijo Academy. Mikado told her to use cheats to take the stars from Hiroto, and she didn't defy him because she knows that she's no match for him. She thinks she's going to get expelled, so she apologizes for her actions, saying nobody can defeat Mikado, but Hiroto tells her he's the strongest on the island, and he says he will help her. Noah returns to Mikado, who disparages her for failing in her mission, despite the illegal abilities he gave her. He wants her to pay him back for everything, telling her to be his slave, but Hiroto suddenly appears. Mikado is surprised to see a drone recording him, and Hiroto reveals that thousands of people are watching them, so he realizes that he has been exposed. The next day, Natsumi announces that Mikado has been taken down, and that the all-campus elimination battle has reached its final stage. She reveals that Hiroto and Noah will fight to determine the Academy's ace for the inter-academy battle, but Noah says she doesn't want to fight, because she is ashamed of what she has done, so she decides to withdraw from the contest. However, Hiroto tells her that it was all Mikado's fault, as he shows her the results of a survey, which reveals that almost everyone has chosen to forgive her. He goes on to lecture her about how special she is, and he decides to withdraw from the contest, allowing her to earn the top spot. Natsumi announces the Academy's representatives for the inter-academy battle, revealing that Yuki is one of them, and two 6-star students named Shinji and Mia are also part of the team. Hiroto earns his spot as the second placer in the recent contest, and Noah will be serving as the Academy's ace. After some time, we see Hiroto walking around the city with Rina, as he reveals that Noah gave him the green star. Rina takes him to the ability shop, where only couples are allowed to enter. She reveals that this is where she bought the pinch hitter ability, but they need to follow the rule to enter the shop, so she wants him to pretend to be her lover. The shopkeeper greets them, and Rina tells her that Hiroto is her boyfriend, but the shopkeeper isn't convinced, because they aren't holding hands. Rina is flustered, and Hiroto tells her that they just need to get it over with, offering his hand to her. But she just gives him a handshake, and the shopkeeper tells them that it's enough, showing them the abilities she's selling. The following day, the Academy's representatives discuss their strategy for the inter-academy battle. Yuki reveals that the game is called Astral, and it allows up to 100 players. The game lasts for 5 days, with 2 periods for each day, and it's going to take place in District 0, which is located at the center of the island. The game field is divided into 1 million spaces, and there are bases scattered around, which the players can capture to expand their team's area. The bases release skills known as spells, which the players can use, but after using the spell, the player won't be able to perform an action for a period of time, which will depend on his movement value. There are 5 positions in the game, and the goal is to dominate the entire area, or eliminate the other teams, but when the timer expires, the team with the largest area wins. A player is eliminated when he loses all 5 of his life points, which are replenished at the end of each period, and a team is eliminated when it runs out of players, or loses all of its area. Yuki adds that there will be an optional card game during the inter-academy battle, and the top prize is a wild card, which will allow a 6th player to join a team in the game. They check out their movement values, and we learn that there are 25 levels, with the lower levels considered as superior. Hiroto has a movement value of 3, but this is revealed to be a lie, as Kagaya bugged the display, revealing that his real value is 19. It is time for the representatives to pick their positions, and Hiroto wants to be the commander, because its movement value is fixed at 25, so he'll be able to hide his real value. Mia wants to be the soldier because she has good reflexes, so she will be able to lead the attack against the enemies. While Noah prefers to be the spy, saying she is good at sneaking around and setting traps. Hiroto is about to pick the commander, but Shinji beats him to it, claiming that he will make a better commander for the team. Hiroto tells Shinji about the commander's ability to trade places with another player, saying he will serve as the commander first, then give Shinji the position if he isn't happy with the results. He agrees to this, but says he will take the position if Hiroto doesn't defeat 3 other commanders in 3 days. That evening, Hiroto receives a call from Rina, telling him that they're in trouble because another Sarsa has appeared. They watch a video together, as Hiroto realizes that the other Sarsa looks just like Rina. The doppelganger claims that she is the real Empress, and she challenges Sarsa to play a game, where they must defeat Hiroto to win. She says that the game will determine who the real Empress is, saying Hiroto gets to decide what happens to her if neither of them wins. They think that Mikado is behind this, because he knows that Rina helped Hiroto during the all-campus battle. After some time, Hiroto begs Kagaya to help him, because he knows that he's going to have a hard time when Astral begins. Yuki reveals that he could end up losing a star if their team doesn't perform well, which could mean the end for him. Kagaya says that the company will help by providing information during the game, and Yuki wonders which abilities Hiroto will be using. He reveals that he'll be using the Indigo and Green Star abilities, but he's still thinking about the third ability. Yuki tells him that she will use an ability called Replacement, which allows players to exchange abilities, thinking it could prove to be useful. Hiroto is on the phone with Rina, who tells him that the students in her academy are staring at her, so she won't be able to talk to him during the game. He tells her not to lose, saying he is rooting for her, and after their call, Hiroto calls another number, saying he needs help with something. On the first day of Astral, the team arrives at the venue, and the announcer, Kazami, tells them that the game will be held in augmented reality. The game begins, as Shinji shows them their first base, explaining that they need to capture neutral bases to expand their area. Yuki occupies a base, but she realizes that she can't perform other actions, because she needs to wait for the timer to expire before the base is captured. Yuki realizes that it takes a long time to occupy, and they decide to check the timer for the other actions. Noah notes that the timer is short if they perform an ability, and Hiroto observes that their movement value drops when they're in their area, so they can gain the advantage by occupying more bases. He reveals the location of 2 nearby bases, and they decide to go for the one to the east. After the first day ends, the team has dinner, and they encounter Kugasaki, who tells them that his team will crush them. Yuki reveals that Kugasaki's team is composed of simps, and she considers them as one of the greatest threats. She goes on to tell him about Toya, the holder of the Black Star, who is notorious for his violent tactics, as Shinji reveals that people have left the island after playing with him. Shinji tells them about a girl named Senri, advising them to run if they bump into her, because she has an ability that can eliminate players in one hit. But Yuki thinks that the greatest threat is Rina's doppelganger, revealing that Mikado's academy can't participate because of the scandal, and the doppelganger took his slot to enter the game. Hiroto encounters a girl named Shina, who is trying to reach for something, so he helps her out, and she reveals that she is a participant of the optional card game. They play games together, and they are able to catch a toy, which she now considers as her familiar. Sheena falls asleep, so he takes her to her room, and he notices that it's a mess, wondering why she didn't have dinner at the buffet, but she tells him that she doesn't want to go there. The next day, Hiroto's group encounters another team, but the team leader wants to form an alliance with them. However, Mia suddenly attacks, leaving them with no choice but to eliminate the enemy. Later that day, Shinji inquires about her motive, saying they were able to win, but he had to protect her because of her reckless actions. He reveals that he once lost to a weaker team because of this, so he reminds her to take the game seriously, but Mia becomes upset, and she runs off, as Hiroto realizes that their teamwork is terrible. We see a man meeting up with his teammates, but he suddenly attacks them, wiping them out, and we learn that this is the work of the doppelganger. Yuki informs everyone about this, so Hiroto thinks that they should understand how her ability works, because she can copy the appearance of anyone. Mia is worried that she could deceive them, so Hiroto suggests that they should stick together. We see Hiroto in Sheena's room, and she reveals that she does nothing but play. So he wonders if she goes to school, but she tells him that she doesn't, saying she doesn't want to talk to people. He goes to Rina's room, and they start talking about the doppelganger. Rina is worried that the players would stop trusting each other, causing the teams to self-destruct. Hiroto tells her that his team is vulnerable to this, and he mentions the bet he made with Shinji, saying he needs to defeat 2 commanders on the 3rd day. But he reveals that he has a plan, which will allow them to win the game. On the 3rd day, Mia walks ahead of the team, saying she is leading the way because she is the best fighter, but Shinji thinks she's being careless, so they start to argue. A dark fog suddenly surrounds them, and they are unable to see their surroundings. When the fog clears, Shinji becomes suspicious of Mia, asking her personal questions to confirm her identity, but this makes her angry. After the mourning period ends, Mia tells them that she no longer wants to play, and Shinji says he needs to clear his head, so he also won't be playing. They are left with 3 members, and Kagaya informs Hiroto that they are surrounded by 2 teams, but he comes up with a plan. They encounter Sanri's group, and Hiroto's teammates chase the other team away. Sanri thinks that he doesn't stand a chance, but he claims that he can beat all of them. A magic blast defeats one of her teammates, as Yuki suddenly appears, revealing that she never went with Noah. Hiroto wonders if Sanri can still use her one-hit kill, but she suddenly uses it, so Yuki shields him, and she barely survives the attack. They start running away, and Sanri realizes that Hiroto is using a spell to turn the battlefield to his advantage. Yuki reveals that she has a plan, telling him that he will have to trust her. She stops running away, so Sanri uses her ability, but it ends up killing her teammate. Yuki reveals that she used an ability to redirect the attack, and this makes Sanri upset. As she continues to chase after them, her teammate is caught in a trap, leading to her death. Hiroto tells her that Noah has the talent to read moves, and she placed traps in the area, knowing Sanri's team would fall for it. Sanri admits that his plan is impressive, but she tells him that it's flawed, because he has used too many spells, so he shouldn't have anything left. Her teammate uses a spell to restrain Yuki, and Sanri thinks she has already won, but Hiroto reminds her that she can't use her ability without her teammates. Sanri reveals that her ability is at its strongest when she's fighting alone, but she used an ability to restrict it and make it usable with her team. She decides to undo the restriction, killing her teammate, as she reveals that she is always stronger when she's alone. She unleashes her powers, launching an attack, but Hiroto manages to evade it, as he reveals that he used the Indigo Star's ability to fool her, and that he still has some spells in his personal slot. But Sanri uses an interference ability, preventing him from taking any actions, and she decides to retreat. Hiroto wonders why she didn't finish him off, and Yuki thinks that she must have her own reasons. Noah reveals that she has wiped out the other team, but they wonder why their team's area hasn't increased. She tells Hiroto that the men were working with the doppelganger, so he thinks that Mikado is up to something. That evening, Shinji apologizes to Hiroto, saying he didn't really suspect Mia, but he wanted to make her leave the game because she doesn't respond well to cruelty. They realize that she is eavesdropping, and Shinji is embarrassed that she heard all of it. Hiroto shows them a video, revealing that the team Mia attacked was preparing to use magic on them. Shinji realizes that she had a good reason to charge in, but she thinks that it's all over for them, because Hiroto has been eliminated from the game. We learn that before the period ended, Hiroto told his friends to trust him, before taking himself out. Shinji wonders if he did this because he wanted to win the bet, but he tells them not to worry, because everything is going according to plan. Hiroto and Rina approach Kazami, and Hiroto tells her that they need her help to defeat the doppelganger. She reveals that the doppelganger is an unauthorized player, and she's using a forged account, but she seems to have an ally in the management committee, which explains why she's being allowed to play. Kazami thinks it will be a disaster if the doppelganger ends up winning, asking Hiroto and Rina to defeat her. Kazami helps Hiroto and his friends infiltrate the management by hiding them inside a box. She takes them to the control room, where she shows them the doppelganger's united army. Yuki reveals that players are helping the doppelganger because they are guaranteed the spot for second place if she wins. We learn that there are already 7 teams attached to her, and this includes the teams of Toya and Kugisaki. Hiroto suggests forming an alliance with the other academies, saying the doppelganger controls less than half of the total area, so they have a chance at winning if the teams band together. Yuki thinks the players will agree to this, because they don't want to lose a star if the doppelganger wins. Hiroto plans to stage a comeback to get the players fired up, so he thinks about playing the optional card game, so that he can get the wild card that will allow him to rejoin the game. Kazami tells him that he needs to defeat the final boss, who is revealed to be Shina. He enters the card game, and Kazami takes the form of a cat, informing him about the rules of the game. There are 3 cards numbered 1 to 9, and by adding these numbers, we get the familiars level. The goal of the game is to defeat the enemy's familiar by raising its level to match the opponent's. Kazami explains that the card's levels can be raised by using Strengthen or Exchange, but Strengthen takes time, so it's faster to use Exchange, saying it's the easiest way to level up. It works by adding coins to the lower level cards, so that it can be traded for a better card. A man suddenly appears, but Hiroto can't even remember who he is. He reveals that his name is Yui, and that Hiroto's team eliminated him from Astral. He knows that Hiroto wants to return to the game, but he reveals that he is already close to finishing it, so Hiroto doesn't stand a chance. At that moment, Sanri's teammate approaches him, offering to exchange her number 4 card for his number 1 card. She reveals that she wants him to win, because she wants him to free Sanri from the doppelganger's influence, revealing that Sanri joined the United Army because she thinks her teammates are weak. Hiroto promises that he will defeat the doppelganger, and he bids her farewell. Hiroto visits a store, offering to exchange his number 1 card for a reward-up card. The shopkeeper wonders if he's gone nuts, because he can't complete the game if he doesn't have enough number cards. But when the shopkeeper checks the exchange rate between a 1 card and a reward-up, he realizes that it's a ridiculous amount. They push through with the deal, allowing Hiroto to earn plenty of coins, which he uses to exchange his cards. Hiroto makes excellent progress, planning to get all 3 of his number cards to 9. He encounters his schoolmates, who tell him that they have number 9 cards with them, offering to give it to him, because they want him to win for the academy. He thanks them for their help, and he is about to fight Sheena, but he realizes that Yui has already challenged her. He uses his skills, raising his level to 33, but he still ends up losing. Hiroto makes his way to her, and he observes that she is overly confident, so he concludes that her level is negative. Sheena reveals that her level is negative 99, so nobody stands a chance, but Kagaya uses her hacking skills to overwrite the data, setting Sheena's level to 30, and Hiroto manages to defeat her. He wonders if she is the doppelganger, and she confirms this, saying they will meet again in Astral. Hiroto makes his way to the control room, where he announces that he has won the card game, so he will be returning to Astral. He informs everyone about Sheena, saying she isn't even a real player, and the admins just threw her in to mess with them. He proposes forming an alliance, so that they can match Sheena's United Army, knowing they will all lose stars if she ends up winning. The players accept his proposal, and they form an alliance with 5 other academies. Hiroto returns to the game, and Yuki reveals that there are 20 players in their alliance, while Sheena's United Army only has 14. But they still think that the enemy team is stronger, because of players like Kudasaki and Senri. Hiroto reveals that Sheena is using illegal methods to manipulate the settings, giving her an unfair advantage over the other players, and she even has 999 life points. He thinks that Senri's one-hit kill is the only way to defeat her, so they need to convince Senri to help them. Hiroto's plan is to lure Senri to the area, while Shinji and Noah capture their allies' base, so that they can fight Senri in their territory. Hiroto encounters Senri's group, and an enemy player tells them to surrender, but the enemies suddenly realize that they are now in Hiroto's territory, as Shinji captures the base. Noah and Shinji join the fight, as Mia attacks the enemies, eliminating Senri's allies. Senri is surrounded, but she decides to fight seriously, and she launches an attack, killing Hiroto's ally. Mia says that she will take care of Senri, telling Shinji to back her up. She charges in, as Senri tries to attack her, but the attack misses, as Shinji reveals that he used the lightning rod ability to make him the target, but the attack didn't land because he was out of range. She proceeds to attack Senri, who tries to stay out of her range, but she uses an ability to increase her attack range, and she manages to land a hit. Senri admits defeat, saying she is impressed with their teamwork. Hiroto tells her about her schoolmate, saying she isn't happy, because Senri decided to join Sheena, thinking her team isn't strong enough. Senri realizes that her teammates wanted to fight with her, as she recalls that she wouldn't be so successful without them. She wants Hiroto to finish her off, but he tells her that he needs her help. We see Toya's group, and we learn that they have just eliminated a group of players. They encounter Hiroto's team, and Mia immediately charges in, but Toya's companion, Shizuku, gets in her way. Toya activates his compound upgrade ability, revealing that it is used to combine 2 identical spells, but since he used it with his Black Star's ability, he can combine more spells to create devastating results. He summons an enormous sword called the Magic Blade, and he swings it at Hiroto, but Yuki shields him, protecting him from harm. Shinji tells Hiroto that he will buy time for them, and he starts fighting against Toya, but Toya's sword suddenly disappears, as Hiroto reveals that he just used the replacement ability, allowing him to use the magic blade. He uses it to attack the enemies, but they dodge it, as Shizuka tells him that it's pointless, because she has already seen the attack. However, Hiroto tells her that it's different when he's using it, because he's a 7-star student, and he summons an invisible magic blade, killing her instantly. He claims that he was able to do it by coming up with an incredible combination, but it was really just the company that modified the effect. Toya decides to fight seriously, as he starts wielding 2 swords. He manages to overpower Mia and Shinji, and he easily takes them out, thinking Hiroto is doomed, because he's already out of spells. Noah tries to fight Toya, but he quickly overwhelms her, and she is eliminated from the game. However, Toya is suddenly restrained, because Noah used a powerful revenge ability that activates when she is eliminated. He breaks the restraints by using an ability to surround himself with an invincible wall. Hiroto realizes that Toya has already used all of his abilities, but he thinks that it doesn't matter, because Hiroto will never break through his barrier. However, Kugisaki suddenly attacks Toya, as he reveals that he is the ultimate simp, so he is willing to do anything for his beloved Sarsa. We learn that Hiroto asked for Kugisaki's help even before the game started, and Toya realizes that it's over for him, so he decides to withdraw. Kugisaki finishes him off, but before his body disappears, he tries to shoot Hiroto, but Yuki takes the bullet for him, and she is eliminated from the game. Kugisaki reveals that Toya withdrew at the last second to save face, and he decides to do the same, telling Hiroto to protect Sarsa, as he forfeits the game. Meanwhile, Rina struggles against Shina, but Senri suddenly appears, using her ability against Shina. Rina thinks that it's over, but Senri suddenly gets shot, and she dies in one hit. Rina falls into despair, thinking there's no way for them to defeat Shina, who is about to finish her off, but at that moment, the period comes to an end, and we learn that there are only 3 players left in the game. At the control room, Hiroto discusses the situation with his team, saying they have lost the war, because there is no way for them to defeat Shina. But he refuses to give up, saying they can win if they set up another game in Astral. While Hiroto is walking around the building, Shina approaches him, and he thinks that she's up to no good, but she just asks him to play with her. He wonders why she's acting like nothing's changed, so he asks her if she really is the doppelganger. Shina confirms this, and he wonders how she got involved in the situation. She reveals that she didn't want to go to high school, but she wanted to play the star-catching game, so she modded her device to install a special program and created her own account. This caught Mikado's attention, so he reached out to her, telling her that he could use her talent, and he invited her to join Astral, giving her a star that allows her to transform. She reveals that Mikado wanted her to be Sarsa's doppelganger, but she suddenly falls asleep. Hiroto realizes that Shina is just playing along, and she doesn't know about his dispute with Mikado, so Astral is just another game to her, but he knows that she will keep playing until the end. The next day, Hiroto tells Shina to return to her original form, saying it will make it easier to show off. She agrees to this, and Hiroto tells her that she is about to win Astral, but he reminds her about the video where she declared war against Sarsa, reminding her that she must defeat him to win that war. He explains that the result of Astral doesn't really matter, because he is the one that they must defeat, reminding Shina that he gets to decide her fate if neither of them can defeat him. So Hiroto suggests playing another game called Crossboard, which is a turn-based game that works inside Astral. Shina appears to be reluctant, so he tells her that this is similar to the star-catching game that she always wanted to play, saying he and Rina are the best players in that game. She ends up agreeing to this, and a stage is set for their final battle. Hiroto explains that the astral field is compressed into 100 spaces, and they lose the game if they lose all of their spaces. He reveals that whatever happens in Crossboard will also happen on the astral field, saying the one who defeats him will be crowned as the real empress. There are 2 types of flags they can place on the board, either Encroach or Conquer. Conquer immediately captures a selected space for the team, while Encroach takes the surrounding spaces when the next turn ends. Shina proceeds to conquer Hiroto's area, leaving him with only 2 spaces, but he still chooses to encroach, surprising everyone. Rina thinks this is bad, because Shina will win if she doesn't capture Hiroto's core base, so she decides not to conquer his area. But after her turn, she realizes that her spaces are being taken, and Hiroto thinks that Mikado is responsible for this. They suddenly see other players on the board, which are copies made using the same technology that Sheena uses to transform herself, so Hiroto concludes that Mikado is trying to expand Sheena's area by force. Hiroto notes that the situation looks bad, but he reveals that he also has something up his sleeves, as his area suddenly expands. We learn that Mia is still in the game, capturing bases for Hiroto, and Shinji is helping her by giving her advice. Meanwhile, Mikado wonders why Mia is still alive, so he checks the video where Toya took her out, and he realizes that Shinji used his lightning rod ability to save Mia. So he becomes upset, knowing things aren't going his way, but he thinks that it's going to be okay, because he can still count on Toya. However, Toya refuses to help him, saying Hiroto has already seen through his plan, so he no longer stands a chance. We return to the game, and we learn that Hiroto and Rina now have the advantage, but Sheena suddenly feels weird, as her body starts moving on its own, and she touches certain areas, conquering them in an instant. They realize that Mikado is cheating like a total noob, so Hiroto traces the ability, allowing him to contact Mikado. He tells Mikado to surrender, because his location has been exposed, but he thinks that Hiroto can't do anything while he's still in the game. However, Hiroto reminds him that he has teammates who aren't in the game, and Yuki suddenly breaks into his room, telling him that she knows about his evil deeds, but he isn't worried because she appears to be alone. Yuki gives the signal, and the other students appear, so he realizes that it's all over for him. Yuki takes control of Sheena, using her to conquer the areas for Hiroto. She ends up losing, and she wonders if she was doing something bad during their game. Kazami suddenly appears, asking her if the game was boring, but she reveals that she had fun, and Kazami is happy to hear this, saying she made the game interesting by acting as the doppelganger. Hiroto wins the game, and he returns to his teammates, who are impressed by how well he played, but he tells them that he couldn't have done it without them. Hiroto thinks about how everything he's gone through started because of a lie, but he thinks about all the people that he met because of it, and he's determined to keep it up until he finds the one that he's looking for. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. The story begins as we see the great hero fighting against the Demon King. The Demon King tries to crush him with an enormous crater, but the hero picks up a stone from the ground. He launches it with all his might, and despite the difference in size, his stone pushes the crater back and even destroys it. He tells the Demon King it's time to end things, so they charge at each other with their ultimate skills, clashing together as they destroy everything in the area. They are both pushed to their limits, but they fight on, and they end up stabbing each other, resulting in a draw, but the hero is just glad that it's all over. After some time, we see a strange boy named Blade, as he enters the Hero Academy. He's excited to live a normal life, wanting to make friends, so he greets everyone around him. He approaches a group of students, introducing himself, but they think he's a bit weird. He meets Kasim and Clay, and the girls Claire and Jessica. He explains he's there to just make friends, so Claire wonders if he wants to be their friend. Blade instantly agrees, excited to have already made 4 friends. At that moment, the number 1 student, Ernest Flaming, appears, wondering about the commotion. She asks Blade who he is, because she's never seen him before. Claire explains he's the new transfer student, but Ernest finds this strange, because the academy only admits aspiring heroes, saying it doesn't normally allow late admissions. Blade says he has no intention of becoming a hero, saying he's just there to make some friends, and this makes Ernest question his resolve, but Blade doesn't care, asking her to show him to the headmaster's office. They enter the office, where Ernest is surprised to see the king instead of the headmaster. She bows before him, but Blade casually walks forward. She asks the king to forgive Blade's rudeness, and the king recognizes her, knowing she is the top student. He informs them that he will be acting as the new headmaster, causing Ernest to fangirl over him, but he asks her to leave, saying he wants to talk to Blade in private. Ernest becomes upset, wondering how Blade is so friendly with the king, but it turns out Blade is the great hero, and the king wants to help him regain his powers. Blade just wants to be an ordinary guy, saying the Demon King is gone, so he is no longer needed, but the king insists on helping him restore his powers, calling him the great hero. At the training area, Ernest is surprised to see Blade, saying they're having an advanced class, but Blade states that he already took the exams for the lower class, and he was told to join them. She accuses him of using underhanded methods to join the advanced class, saying he shouldn't even be in the academy because of his half-hearted resolve, but Blade tells her that he's dead serious about making friends in the school. Blade goes around, introducing himself to everyone, as Ernest shouts at him to listen to her. He tells her he's listening, patting her head, but she draws her sword, telling him not to do this, and she ends up damaging the wall. A girl tells them that the instructor wants them to assemble, as Blade tells her his name. The girl introduces herself as Sophie, and Blade is happy to meet her, as Ernest calls the instructor, saying she wants to test Blade's ability. The instructor informs her that they have something else planned for the day, but she intimidates him, so he ends up accepting her request. They set up a dummy with enchanted armor, and Ernest claims that all advanced students can slice through it. She wants Blade to prove himself to everyone, saying the advanced class is 3 whole levels different. So Blade adjusts his skills accordingly, using a technique to surround his sword with wind, as he unleashes his Dragon Eater skill, which completely shatters the dummy, and even destroys the wall. His sword falls apart, and Ernest wonders who he is. He sees everyone in bad shape, realizing that he just blew all of them away, but he still claims to be an ordinary person. During their break, Blade sits with Ernest, and he calls on his friends to sit with them, but they refuse to join him, so he wonders what's wrong. Ernest reveals that the table is reserved for her, saying everyone is scared of her. As Blade gobbles up his food, Ernest takes back what she said about him, but he can't even remember what she said, so he tells her not to bother. He thanks her for helping him out, telling her they're eating together, so he considers her as his friend. This makes her blush, saying she doesn't mind being his friend. That evening, Ernest thinks about Blade, and she is happy because she just made her first friend, but her sword suddenly starts shaking. In a flashback, we see a young Ernest as she approaches the demon sword. A voice orders her to surrender herself, and she touches the sword, causing her hair to turn red, and since then, she has been hearing voices in her head, ordering her to destroy everything. She has a duel with a boy named Leonard, who charges at her with his lance, but she easily deflects the attack, sending him flying. It's Sophie's turn to fight her, and she is able to go toe-to-toe with Ernest, but she starts using her fire skill, so she jumps away, admitting defeat. Ernest is about to fight Blade, but she feels a strange energy, causing her to collapse. Blade takes her to the infirmary, where the doctor informs him that Ernest has a curse, so there isn't anything she can do for her. Ernest regains consciousness, unable to remember what happened, so she wonders if she did something awful. Blade tells her that she just fell unconscious, and the doctor advises her to rest longer, but she quickly gets back up, wanting to leave right away. The doctor is against this, but Blade volunteers to look after her, so he carries her around, but she starts walking on her own as they see the other students, and she tells him not to tell the other students about her condition. Blade browses the Academy's database, and he learns about the demon sword called Asmodeus, so he approaches Ernest, telling her he knows about her sword's secret. We learn that Asmodeus grants the owner tremendous power, but it has a will of its own. Ernest reveals that she saw the sword under her family's custody, and she laid her hands on it when she was 6 years old, causing the demon's will to flow into her. She's been resisting the urge to destroy everything, and Blade suggests getting Asmodeus to acknowledge her as its owner, but she's afraid that the demon will come to life if she fails. But Blade assures her he will cut it down if that happens. So that evening, she implores Asmodeus to form a pact with her, challenging it to test her strength. A pillar of fire surrounds her, and Asmodeus appears before her. As they prepare to fight, a demon emerges from the pillar of fire, wanting to destroy everything, but Blade easily takes it out. Ernest feels assured that Blade is there to back her up, and she brings out her sword, charging at Asmodeus as he breaks his seal, unleashing an energy beam. Their powers collide, and the pillar of fire suddenly disappears, as Ernest comes out on top. Blade catches her as she falls, and they are both happy that she made it back. The next day, Blade has a duel with 2 students, and he defeats them without even lifting a finger. Ernest tells him to at least draw his sword, saying he should respect his opponents. She asks Blade to look after Sophie, and she reveals that Sophie is always alone, but she obeys any command she's given. Sophie doesn't take any spontaneous action, but since she introduced herself to Blade, Ernest thinks he will be able to handle her. Blade approaches Sophie, saying he wants to help her with her training, but Sophie reveals that she was only taught to use her fists. Blade wants to teach her how to use a sword, and she tries wielding it, but she can't even cut through the dummy. He teaches her how to use the sword as an extension of her body, and he demonstrates it, cutting through the dummy with ease. She quickly gets the hang of it, wondering if she will be able to beat Ernest, but Blade tells her that getting to her level won't be easy. She throws the sword, taking Blade down with her hands, and she tells him that her body is stronger. She wants Blade to teach her something else, and the next day, the king asks him about his life in school. Blade tells him that he made some friends, mentioning Sophie as one of them. The king says that Sophie is strong, but she is still incomplete, saying she was created with the goal to surpass him. He tells Blade about the Artificial Great Hero Project, where an organization took a human that showed aptitude and tried to artificially manifest the great hero's powers. He adds that they cloned the human multiple times so that they could perform countless experiments. The king reveals that Sophie's real name is Sophie-Tia Femto, and she is the 12th clone of the human named Sophie-Tia. She was treated as an object while she was being experimented on, making Blade upset, but the king tells him not to worry because he already put an end to that organization. Blade realizes that Sophie has been robbed of a normal life, blaming himself for what happened to her, so he wants to help her get a normal life. But he doesn't even know what it's like to be ordinary, so he approaches the doctor, asking her what a normal life is, and she tells him it has something to do with youth. He then asks Leonard about the meaning of youth, and the first thing that comes into his mind is love. He approaches Jessica and Claire, asking them about what people do when they're in love, and Claire tells him that lovers go on dates together. Blade visits Ernest, asking her what a date is, and she tells him what lovers do during dates, but she thinks it's too early for them to go on a date. He quickly dashes off, saying he's off on a date, as Ernest wonders who he will be dating. Blade barges into the girls' dressing room, asking a naked Sophie to have a date with him, and she agrees to this. Later, we see Blade's friends spying on him as he meets up with Sophie, who knows nothing about dates. Blade tells her to leave everything to him, as he gives her the precise time for everything they will be doing during their date, but Sophie points out that they are already behind schedule, so he panics, wondering what they should do. Sophie tells him they should just start moving, and they enjoy their time together, as Blade's friends continue to spy on them. They reach an arcade, where they play a punching game, and they end up breaking the machines, so Blade's friends offer to pay for it. They share a tropical drink, with their cheeks touching as they drink it. Ernest can't stand watching them, calling them filthy animals, so her friends give her a parfait, which she finds delicious, but as she gobbles it up, they realize that the duo is now gone. Blade checks out their plan, and he realizes that they are behind schedule, but Sophie tells him not to worry because they can take a shortcut. They scale the wall, and jump to the sky, leaping around the town to reach their destination. They arrive at a legendary fountain, where Sophie reveals that she had fun with him. She asks Blade why he is doing this, and Blade tells her that it's because they're friends. Sophie thinks that friends shouldn't keep secrets from each other, so she tells him that she is not an ordinary human, because she is an incomplete test subject created to be an artificial hero. She reveals that she has artificial great hero powers, and she displays this by warping the railing, saying she can alter the laws of physics, but she doesn't have complete control over it. She can also increase her body weight, but she tends to overdo it, and she can even stop time for 10 seconds. Sophie reveals she's the final model of the Artificial Hero Project, and although she's considered to be a success, she still has limitations. Blade wants to be fair with her, so he tells her that he used to be the great hero, which is a surprise to her. He apologizes for what happened to her, telling her she can resent him, because he sees the great hero's power as a curse. Blade explains that he never wanted to be the great hero, but he had no choice because he was told that he could save everyone with his powers, which manifested at the age of 3. Since then, he fought countless times, risking his life for everyone, but despite this, he couldn't save every single person, and this made the people angry because it's his duty as the great hero to protect them. Blade starts crying, but Sophie hugs onto him, telling him to be proud because he saved people's lives, and she is actually proud that she was created to be an artificial great hero, wanting to be just like him. Blade decides that he will not let his past as the great hero bother him, as they promise to keep his identity a secret. The following day, the friends dine together, and Ernest tells Blade about the magical beast that the king brought to the school, when suddenly, the ground starts shaking. A dragon appears in the academy, causing the soldiers to panic, as Blade arrives, casually walking to the dragon while holding onto a plate. The dragon roars at him, as he leaps to the air, striking it with his fist. The dragon is knocked down, and he gives it food. Everyone is surprised to see that he just defeated it with his bare hands, but Blade claims that he's just an ordinary person, saying the dragon is so weak that anyone could take it down with a single hit. The dragon transforms into a girl, who hugs onto Blade, calling him her dad. Blade says he will look for her parents, as he starts looking for the dragon. But Sophie tells him she saw it transform, and the girl's true form is the dragon, making him surprised. The girl wants to play with him, as she continues to call him her dad, and Blade wonders what he should do. That evening, Blade helps the girl take a bath, and we learn that he named her Ku. Ernest enters the bathroom, and she is surprised to see him taking a bath. Blade asks her if she learned anything, and she tells him that magical beasts, including dragons, seek out strength. Its flesh may perish if it is defeated, but its soul will remain, and it will take the form of the stronger being that defeated it. Blade wonders if a dragon can take a human form if a human defeats it, asking her if Ku was defeated by a human during her past life. Ernest asks him if he named the girl Ku, and the girl reveals herself, saying she likes her name. Ernest becomes upset, calling Blade a pervert, as she stomps on his face before leaving the room. The next day, Ernest stares at Blade as he feeds Ku. Ku reveals that she can feed herself, but she wants to be fed by Blade because it makes the food taste better. Claire wants to feed her, but Ku refuses, saying she won't be friends with weaklings. She wants Blade to only pay attention to her, demanding that he give her good morning smooches and feed her meals. She tells Blade that he spends too much time staring at the bodies of women, saying it's unacceptable, and this surprises his friends. They ask him if he was staring at them, but he tells them that he has no idea what they're talking about. They all think he's guilty, so they start seeing him as trash, leaving him out during their training sessions. Blade sees Ku walking around the training area, so he calls out to her, and she joins him in the area. At that moment, his friends approach him, asking him to teach them because they just joined the advanced class. Jessica wants to specialize in espionage, which is Sophie's specialty, so Blade tells her to train with Sophie. They are about to begin their training, but Ku suddenly disappears, as Blade wonders where she went. We see Ku walking around the academy, and she sees a group of students training. They notice her, asking her if she wants to join them, but she tells them that they're no match for her, as she starts running away. Ku bumps into Blade, and she tells him that she's starving, so Blade treats her to some food. While Ku is asleep, Blade talks to Ernest, telling her that dragons are tormented by parents after they're born, so dragons recognize the first stronger being they encounter as their parent. Blade thinks that Ku has been alone since she was born, so she'll be truly alone if he stops acting as her parent. Ernest realizes that he's serious when he decided to take care of her, and she calls out to Sophie, who was listening to their conversation. Ernest reveals that she ran into her while she was heading to his room, saying she's worried. Blade assures Sophie that things are going well, and they return to their rooms, but Blade realizes that Ku isn't there. He finds her sitting on the roof, where she reveals that the moons calm her down. Ku sees the big moon as the parent and the small moon as the child, saying she used to look at them when she was alone in the wasteland. Blade asks Ku if she wants to make friends, but she tells him that dragons are better than humans, so she doesn't want to be with them, saying Blade is the only one she needs. The following day, Blade asks the king to look after Ku, but she doesn't like being around the king, so she bursts out of the room. Blade starts searching for Ku, and he sees her in a room playing with dolls, as she pretends that they are the students in the academy. She enumerates the names of all students, imagining that they are all her friends, and this makes him sad. Blade smashes his head against the wall, but Ernest stops him, asking him to explain what happened. He tells Ernest that Ku needs friends, but he thinks it's impossible because she looks down on humans, knowing they need to defeat her first. Ernest tells him that he can't fix this by himself, so she suggests asking for help. They go to the training area, where Blade asks for a favor from everyone, telling them to defeat Ku, but the students know this is a difficult task. He begs them to do this, and Ernest reveals that she will be fighting alongside them. At that moment, their classmates arrive, saying they're also worried about Ku, so they request the students to join in the fight against her. The students agree to their request, and Ku descends from the sky, as the students prepare to take her on. The king watches from above, saying this is the kind of training he wants to see. His servant wonders if a dragon will acknowledge defeat if it's taken down by a large group of humans, and the king tells her that dragons see humans collectively, so it's still considered a fair fight. We learn that when the humans captured Ku, she was caught in a trap, so she wasn't able to fight them, but Blade tells her that things are different now, telling her to see how tough humans are. Ku breathes fire, as Ernest pulls out her sword, telling everyone to prepare for battle. Ku attacks with her tail, causing all the students to run, but Ernest lands an attack on her, telling the other students to remember their training. The students get into formation, attacking her blind spot, and the king enjoys the show, but the king notes that their attacks won't be enough to get through a dragon's scales. Ku blows some of the students away, and things aren't looking good for them, but Sophie lands a punch on her, and Ernest attacks with her demon sword. The king thinks it's not enough, but Blade says it was just a distraction, and Ku falls into a pit. The king says it's not fair to use traps, but Blade claims that it's fair, since the trap was created during the fight, and we see Leonard dug the hole while the other students were distracting Ku. The students charge at Ku, and Ernest prepares another attack, but Asmodeus struggles from the constant use. She tells him not to be a wimp, and she attacks Ku again. Ku starts to fly, but Ernest knocks her right back down. Sophie uses her gravity manipulation, delivering a decisive blow, and Blade tells Ernest to end it. Asmodeus has had enough, but she charges up all her power, and the other students all join hands, giving her all their power. Ernest creates an enormous flame, and she delivers the finishing blow. Ku turns back to her human form, and she starts to cry thinking that she's weak. But Blade tells her it's not that she's weak, but that humans are strong, so she should be friends with them. She asks them all to become friends, and they all happily agree. A few days later, we see them all having lunch together, and the girls take turns playing with Ku, finding her adorable. Blade notices that Ernest seems different, and his friends start to panic. They try to pretend there's nothing wrong, but Blade points out that Ernest seems to have gotten fat. She is devastated hearing this, and she runs off saying they are done, but Blade doesn't know what he did wrong. 3 days later, Blade is depressed, because Ernest has locked herself in her room. He worries that they are no longer friends, so he wants to apologize to her, but his friends mention he doesn't even know why Ernest is mad at him, so he will only make her more angry. They decide to go along with him, knocking on her door, but she doesn't respond. Jessica picks the door, and they let themselves in. They see Ernest on the floor, and they think she's crying, but Ku suddenly rushes over to her. They turn on the lights, and we see Ernest is actually stuffing herself with sweets. She explains that ever since the fight against Ku, she started getting hungry all the time, and she ended up getting hooked on desserts. Blade asks her if they are still friends, and Ernest says that they are, but she didn't want him to see her like this. Blade is relieved hearing this, and he prepares to leave, but the girls drag him back, saying they need to help Ernest. He doesn't know how to comfort her, so Jessica tells Leonard to show him how it's done. Leonard swears he will be devoted no matter how fat she gets, but Ernest just punches him away. Blade gives it a shot, telling her that her friends are there for her, so she can rely on them, and Ernest decides to give it a go. We see them going for a run, but Ernest struggles to keep up. They help her with other exercises, and she only gets a tiny plate for lunch. Jessica tells her she needs to cut her calories, but Ernest just wants to eat. She spends time sweating it out in the sauna, but after everything, when she checks her weight, it hasn't gone down at all. The next day, Ernest decides to try something more drastic. She uses the power of her sword, offering up her flesh as power, and she is covered with flames. Her friends arrive, wondering what's going on, and Blade tells them to believe in her. She gains a new form, and Asmodeus speaks to her, saying she has achieved an undying body that's immune to physical attacks, and he wonders who they are fighting, but Ernest tells him she did it just to burn off her fat, and Asmodeus is stunned, but he notes that this form consumes 1,000,000 calories per hour. Ernest is glad she doesn't need to work out, but she reaches her limit, and she starts to get hungry again. She starts to lose control, charging at her friends to eat them, but Blade unleashes an enormous gust of wind, overpowering her, and she returns to normal. But not long after, they see Ernest is fat again, stuffing herself with sweets. They're all disappointed in her, but she claims she can just turn into a demon again, so it's not a problem. In the infirmary, the doctor tells Blade that he's making great progress, revealing that he's currently at 30% condition. Blade asks her if he can now use his powers, but the doctor explains that he will die if he uses 30% of his full strength. As Blade walks around the academy, he stumbles upon Claire, who introduces him to her friend named Maria, and Blade remembers her as a clumsy student who can't even throw fireballs in the right direction. Maria joins Blade's group at the dining table, and she asks them to kill her if she loses control of herself. She explains that a powerful magical beast exists inside her, as she accidentally shatters her cup, saying this is what happens when she loses control of her strength. Maria states that she was able to control her strength, but she's been having issues with it recently. Maria is afraid that the beast will destroy everything, knowing she needs to do something, and they all agree to help her out. They take her to the training area, which they surround with a magic barrier, as Blade tells Maria to unleash her full power. Maria doesn't want to do this, but Ernest states that Blade has saved her before, so Maria decides to have faith in him. She removes a limiter on her arm, shattering the ground as it falls, and she reveals that it limits her powers by half. She proceeds to remove the limiters on her other limbs, and she shows them her pendant, saying it restricts her power to 1/10. But before she could remove it, the chain breaks, as a powerful wind surrounds her, transforming her into a demon, and a mark on her forehead appears, as she claims to be the Demon King. Blade knows this isn't true, but the mark on her forehead is identical to the one that the Demon King had. Ernest uses her full power, trying to attack the demon, but she is blown away with just a gust of wind, sending her crashing into the ground. Leonard charges at the demon with his lance, but with just a flick of her finger, she sends Leonard flying. Sophie manages to grab the demon, using all of her energy to cast an immobilization spell, but it's not enough to hold her. Ku unleashes a powerful fire breath, but the demon just absorbs it, and she throws it right back at Ku, exploding upon contact, and instantly defeating her. With all of his friends defeated, Blade strikes the demon, but it does nothing, and she realizes that Blade is holding back, because he hasn't even unsheathed his sword. She threatens to kill him if he doesn't fight seriously, as she blows him away with a gust of wind. Blade unsheathes his sword, trying to fight back, but she easily parries his attacks. She wonders if that's all he can do, as she blasts him with fire. Blade blocks it with his sword, but it causes it to shatter. Ernest gives him Asmodeus, and he claims he will end the fight with a single move. But the demon thinks he's being arrogant, telling him to bring it on. A powerful aura surrounds him, and he unleashes a devastating attack. The demon blocks it with her barrier, but it starts to crack, and she soon realizes it isn't enough, wondering who she's fighting. Blade claims that he's just an ordinary guy, and he shatters her barrier, allowing him to defeat her. His skill causes a massive explosion, which even destroys the magic barrier surrounding the area. Blade is happy that everyone survived, but he suddenly collapses. He wakes up in the infirmary, where the doctor reveals that she was worried about him because he almost died. Blade promises to be more careful, and the doctor reveals that his friends are fine, saying even the demon survived. After some time, we see the demon walking around the academy, and when she sees Blade, she is about to call him the great hero, but Blade stops her, confirming her suspicion as he tells her to stop, asking her what happened to Maria. The demon tells him that Maria is a different personality, saying nobody has given her a name, but the other students are calling her Mal. The king reveals that he was the one who welcomed Maria into the school, knowing about her identity. He explains that her deceased mother was human, and his father's fate is unknown, but they all know him as the Demon King. Blade's group observes Mal as she interacts with the students, but they wonder if it's okay to leave her like this, thinking she is dangerous. Ernest states that the king decided to let her go free, and Mal reveals that her powers are restrained by the pendant, saying she will abide by the school's rules as an ordinary student. Mal leaves with the other students, as the group talks about Maria, wondering if they'll be able to see her again. That evening, Mal visits Blade in his room, inviting him on a date. She grabs onto him, and they fly together, as Mal reveals that she gained self-awareness 5 years ago, but she now considers herself a lady. Mal takes him to the roof, where she reveals that she stayed at the school because of him, saying she has become attached to him because of his powers. Blade reveals he can now only use 15% of his power, and Mal says he's not worth killing as he is, but she won't leave the school until she kills him in the future. Mal thinks she likes Blade, but she isn't sure about her feelings, and she reveals that she can't remove her pendant, because Maria's consciousness won't allow her to do it. She reveals that Maria was scorned by humans, so she was forced to live in hiding with her mother, who believed in her father, but Maria doesn't share her sentiment. Her mother's death filled Maria's mind with doubt, not knowing about her father, and wondering if her father was the cause for all of her suffering. Mal's consciousness was born to help Maria cope with this issue, so she thinks that Maria won't return. A few days later, Maria's friend Eliza reveals that she has done her research, saying the pendant is not a sealing item, but a recording device. Eliza speculates that it could contain a message from Maria's parents, thinking it could bring Maria back. Mal allows her to activate the pendant, and Eliza tells her to open it, and when she does, it causes a hologram of the Demon King to appear. They hear the Demon King telling Maria's mother to forgive him for leaving her behind, because he had to fight someone, and he didn't want to get her involved. The Demon King told her to name their daughter Maria, and he told her to tell Maria that he was already dead, but he states that he will love them even after his death. Mal starts to cry, as she reveals that Maria's consciousness is about to take over. Everyone calls Maria's name, and her consciousness returns to the body, as she continues to cry. Later, we see Blade having a duel with Maria, who allows Mal to take over her body. As they fight, we learn that Maria wants Mal to coexist with her, so even though Maria's consciousness is dominant in her body, she still allows Mal to take over. Blade walks around the town with his friends, and they see a wagon stuck under the bridge. They realize that the wagon is being pulled by a centaur, who Blade recognizes as Dione. She is about to call Blade the great hero, but Blade stops her, telling her that his identity as a great hero is a secret. Dione explains that she has known Blade for a long time, and Blade asks her what she plans to do with the wagon. Ku offers to take care of it, and they make their way to the king, who is revealed to be the owner of the wagon. The king informs Dione that she's going to be teaching at the academy, saying she is more than qualified to act as their instructor, as she looks forward to teaching Blade. At the academy, Dione demonstrates her skills on huge blocks of god iron, which are deemed to be indestructible. She charges at a block with her lance, blowing a hole into it as she passes through, and the students are impressed by her skill. Dione proceeds to destroy the other blocks, as Sophie notices that the heat generated by her attacks are causing the god iron to melt. Dione easily destroys all of them, saying she has finally warmed up, so she's ready to begin the class. Dione introduces herself to everyone, revealing that she is known as the Demon Lance, and Ernest recognizes her alias, asking her if she is the commander of the cavalry corps. The class is surprised to learn that someone so accomplished is going to be their teacher, but Dione tells them that she's nothing compared to the great hero. As they take a bath, his friends start asking Dione about her relationship with Blade, wanting to know what Blade was like in the past. Jessica starts patting her back, and this makes Dione feel good, causing her to make weird noises. Blade hears the noise, so he enters the ladies' room, and this makes Ernest upset, but Jessica tells her not to worry, because Blade is mentally similar to a 5-year-old. Dione reveals that Blade was 5 years old when she first met him, saying he used to be as fierce as a wild animal. She tells them that Blade tried to eat her in the past, back when she was so much weaker. After that happened, she trained to become stronger, allowing her to join forces with the great hero. Dione reveals that the great hero used to ride on her back, but he didn't let her join during his fight against the Demon King, and she thinks it's because she wasn't strong enough at the time. Several days later, we see Blade and Ernest walking around the town, when a massive bird known as a Simurgh appears. Ernest wonders what it's doing there, but she isn't worried, because there is no record of Simurghs attacking humans. But at that moment, the Simurgh descends toward them, destroying a nearby wagon. Ernest thinks about fighting it, but the Simurgh glares at her, causing her to hesitate, as Blade tells her to keep her fighting spirit in check. So Ernest raises her hands, and the birds start flying away, as she realizes that there are 2 Simurghs. They wonder why the wagon was attacked, thinking the king must have something to do with it, so Ernest rushes to the king, asking him to explain what's happening, as Blade informs him about the situation. The king reveals that the wagon brought by Dione contained a Simurgh's egg, so Ernest becomes upset, because his actions made the parents furious. But the king explains that the parents picked a poor location for a nest, because it needs to be placed at a greater height, where it can bathe in the light of the setting sun for it to hatch. He tells them that the egg wouldn't have hatched if it were left alone, so he decided to intervene, telling them the egg is going to hatch tomorrow, and ordering them to protect it. The next day, Blade informs the students that they need to buy time until sunset, saying the parents are in a state of frenzy, so they might destroy the egg if they find it. He tells the students about their plan to hide the egg, and lift it to the top of the tower using an elevator, so that the egg will be placed under the perfect condition for it to hatch. The Simurghs are destroying the wagons in the capital, but the students have evacuated the civilians, and they are now fighting a Simurgh. They manage to restrain it with wires made of god iron, but the bird manages to break free, pulling up entire buildings and flying away with it. However, Blade is happy because it bought some time for the egg to hatch. As Claire treats the wounded, the other Simurgh appears, so Ku attacks it with a fire blast, but it does nothing, and it dashes past her. Maria allows Mao to take over, attacking with lightning, but it isn't enough to defeat the bird, so Ernest consumes all of her energy to use the flame of Asmodeus, dealing considerable damage. With her energy depleted, she crashes into a building, but she happens to find pudding, so she eats them to regain her strength. As the sun is about to set, they lift the egg using an elevator, but it malfunctions, causing it to stop, as a Simurgh makes its way to them. Blade starts scaling the tower to reach the egg, but he is struggling because he can only use 15% of his strength, so Dione helps him, allowing him to ride on her back. She reminds Blade that he's no longer alone, and he tells her that he now has plenty of friends, considering Dione as one of them. They reach the egg, but Blade struggles to lift it, so Dione comes up with an idea, telling him to hold it tight, as she lifts him up, and pushes him to the top of the tower. The king welcomes them to the finish line, but a Simurgh approaches them, and the king states that it's his time to shine. He tells the Simurgh that his name is Gilgamesh Soulmaker, saying he is about to pay it back with new life, as his assistant explains that a Simurgh once saved his life, and he is doing this to repay his debt. However, the Simurgh appears to be angry, and it flicks the king away, causing him to bounce off the egg. The egg is pushed to the side, so Blade struggles to save it. At that moment, Sophie suddenly appears, and she uses her powers to stop time for 5 seconds, giving Blade the time to use his Dragon Eater skill, which summons wind dragons to defeat the Simurgh. Sophie and Blade are now exhausted as the egg hatches, revealing twin Simurghs. The babies stare at Blade, recognizing him as their parent, and Blade wonders what he's supposed to do with them. Many days later, Blade and Ernest try flying on the Simurghs. Ernest panics because of its erratic movements, and we see the parents living in peace with everyone. Ku flies with them as Blade reveals how happy he is, knowing he has made more friends. On a dark and gloomy day, we see Blade as he walks through the academy hall with a bloodied sword. The other students confront him, but he cuts them all down in an instant. He reaches Sophie, and she reveals she has always wondered what would happen if she went all out against him. She uses her power to freeze time, landing multiple simultaneous attacks, but when time resumes, Blade is unaffected. He grabs her by the neck, revealing he protected himself by making his body as hard as adamantium. He plunges his sword into her chest, and she falls to the ground, but Blade suddenly calls out to the king, saying he wants to get out of the illusion. The king appears on a screen, saying it's not an illusion, and he reveals Blade is in a virtual reality, saying it was created by the branch of magic called science. He says that in this world, they are able to fight all out without hurting somebody, so it's the perfect place to train. Blade thinks it's too realistic, and he worries that people could mix up if they are in the virtual world and attack people in the real world. The king adjusts the settings, and he transforms the world into a Candyland, telling Blade it's a fight to the death, and the winner gets to use the virtual reality however they want. We see Leonard charging with his lance, but Ernest takes him out. It seems she is taking full advantage of the virtual world, as she lets her impulses control her. As Blade walks around, he sees Clay fighting against Jessica, and Kasim fighting against Claire. Jessica gets pushed back, and the boys tell them to just give up, because they have never lost against them in a fight. But the girls refuse to give up, and Jessica manages to take out Kasim, while Claire smashes Clay with her mace. Ernest approaches them, and it seems she's after Blade. She charges at him like a psycho, but Blade slashes rapidly, blowing everything away. Blade wakes up, and the king announces that he was the last man standing. Claire and Jessica note that they couldn't even see his attack, and Ernest cries as she reflects on her unhinged behavior, but the king laughs, calling her entertaining. Ernest is not impressed, and Blade starts using the virtual reality machine. The king sees him adding the strongest monsters into the world, and he thinks it would be tough even for the great hero, but Blade ends up plugging the king in instead. The king is terrified as he goes up against all kinds of monsters, and Blade tells the king's assistant to keep reviving him if he dies. Blade enjoys his lunch, and we see that Clay and Kasim are depressed. Ernest wonders what's going on, and Blade tells her how they were beaten by the girls, saying that they probably got complacent with their skills and neglected their training. After lunch, Blade sees a flyer for a new hot spring, and they find Dione digging outside. She welcomes them in, and they all take a relaxing bath together. Blade notices that Ernest is missing, and Jessica thinks she has something against the hot spring, but Ernest appears from behind a rock, revealing she isn't a fan of the mixed bath. We see Clay and Kasim are still depressed, and the girls try to tell them that they just got lucky, but Ernest can see they are just rubbing salt in the wound. Claire apologizes for winning, but this destroys their egos, and they run off in tears. At night, Blade checks up on the two of them, but they think he wouldn't understand since he has never lost. They reveal that they are in love with the two girls, and it's the reason they feel so bad about losing. Ku suddenly bursts in, saying all they need to do is get stronger, because girls like guys that are strong, and she tells them that Blade can train them. Meanwhile, the girls have a girls' night, and Jessica wonders what they should do about Kasim and Clay. Claire suggests throwing a fight against them, but the others think that would only make things worse. Ku suddenly appears, saying that guys like strong women, and she tells them they should get even stronger, but it seems the girls aren't really into them like that. Kasim and Clay undergo Blade's training, and he makes them do all kinds of crazy exercises. The next virtual reality class arrives, and the guys think about confessing to the girls if they win. They prepare to have their rematch, and Blade tells them to begin. As they start to fight, the girls rush at them, but we see the guys have learned how to use their spiritual energy, and they push the girls back. Blade says he helped them recognize it, but it seems the girls are also able to use it, after learning from Ernest. Claire takes Cassim out with her mace, while Jessica freezes Clay, and she finishes him off with lightning. After the fight, the guys thank them for not going easy, and they swear to get even stronger. Cassim wonders about Jessica's ice and lightning attacks, and she reveals she learned them thanks to Sophie and Maria. Clay thinks they were ganged up on, but Ernest steps forward, saying they had training from Blade. She goes on to ask them why they need to be stronger than the person they like, saying it's a ridiculous requirement, because she knows she will never be stronger than Blade. The girls discover a robot, and they wonder what it's doing there, when it suddenly activates, displaying a picture of Blade. We see Blade meditating, when Ku lunges at him, but his aura pushes her back. Ku wonders what he's doing, and Blade tells her he was storing up his power so that he can use more than 15% at a time. At that moment, the girls arrive with the robot, telling him that it's been looking for him, but he suddenly pulls out his sword, instantly destroying it with his Dragon Eater skill. His sword breaks, as he comments that his meditation worked, because he isn't exhausted after using the skill. Ernest asks him why he destroyed the robot, so Blade tells her that they need to destroy it, calling it a guardian. As they talk, the robot scans Ernest's body, and it performs a system update. The next day, the robot is back, but has taken the form of a girl, revealing that she designed the form to arouse Blade's protective instincts. Blade asks her who she is, but she prepares to attack him, so he strikes first, sending her crashing into the wall. Ernest beats him for attacking a girl, wondering what he's thinking, but Blade tells her not to worry. After some time, the girl recovers, and Blade wants to destroy her right away, but Ernest stops him, saying the girl isn't dangerous. However, Blade isn't convinced, knowing how dangerous guardians can be. The girl reveals that she was given an order to destroy him, and she is currently observing him to gather more data. Claire asks her if she wants to join their class, calling her Iona, because she sees the name on her chest, but the girl reveals that it's read as 10NA, and it's actually her identification number, but Claire insists on calling her Iona. Iona isn't interested in joining their class, but Claire tells her that they will help her come up with a plan to defeat Blade, and Iona agrees to work with her. They discuss how to defeat Blade, as Claire asks Iona why she is after him. We learn that Blade entered the area she was guarding, which was the Royal Library where he learned about Asmodeus. Iona reveals that Blade destroyed her multiple times, but Blade tells her that she always attacked him first, so he had no choice but to fight back. The girls condemn Blade's behavior, so he starts walking away. Sophie follows him, and Blade tells her that he only broke into the library because of his duties as the great hero. We learn that guardians keep their souls in a separate location, so they won't die if their bodies are destroyed. Eliza thinks that Iona can't win, because Blade knows that she won't die if he attacks her, so Eliza comes up with a plan. Eliza explains that if they install Iona's soul into her body, Blade will hesitate to attack her, because she is no longer indestructible. At the arena, Blade and Iona are about to fight, but she tells him that she is no longer connected to her mother computer, so she will die if she is destroyed. She proceeds to give him a beating, blowing him away, and asking him what's wrong. Blade is about to use his Dragon Eater skill, but he hesitates, knowing she will die if he uses it, so he uses the skill with his bare hands instead, but it has no effect on her, and she proceeds to pummel him, taking him down, and landing a strike, which shatters the area around them. Blade admits defeat, and everyone celebrates Iona's victory. After some time, Iona explains that she's been trying to reconnect with the mother computer, but it isn't accepting her connection, seeing her as a defective unit, and she doesn't feel secure because she has no supervisor. She wants Blade to be her master, saying the counter will keep ticking if he refuses. Iona reveals that she is going to self-destruct, making everyone panic, as we learn that she will explode in a few days, so Blade tells her that he can be her master. Iona becomes Blade's servant, saying she will obey his commands, but Sophie becomes upset, because Iona is stealing her character traits, so they start competing for Blade's attention. They have a contest to determine who will be able to serve Blade better, and that evening, they watch Blade as he sleeps. Iona reveals that she was always alone, and that Blade was the only person who came to visit her. Sophie was also alone when she was at the lab, saying she was only able to stay linked with the world because of Blade. They realize that they aren't so different, so they start to get along, making Blade happy. The next day, Blade asks Iona to show him the counter, and we learn that she will self-destruct in a few hours. She reveals that serving Blade only slowed down the counter, as Eliza speculates that it must be because Blade is human. Iona tells them that she wants to spend her last moments with them, so they throw a party for her, as Sophie tells her to enjoy the moment, because everyone is trying to make her wish come true, calling her a friend. They enjoy their time together, and after the party, Ernest starts looking for Blade, but he's nowhere to be found. Iona's time is about to run out, so she walks away from the others, and protects them with a barrier. Iona thanks them for helping her enjoy her final moments, saying she now understands humans. She tells Ernest that she is scared, because she doesn't want her life to end, telling them not to forget about her. She bids them farewell, but to their surprise, Iona doesn't self-destruct, so they start to wonder what's going on. At that moment, Blade comes out of the ground, and Ernest asks him why he didn't attend the party. Blade reveals that he went to the mother computer, and begged her to let Iona live. His actions caused Iona's connection with the mother computer to be restored, so she will no longer self-destruct, so they all celebrate. The Academy has a battle royale, where every student uses their powers to compete, but Blade wipes the floor with everyone. Leonard is still standing, so everyone cheers for him, telling him to defeat Blade. He wants to win for Ernest, but she thinks that he's a goner, knowing how weak he is. Leonard charges at Blade, who easily defeats him, as the others walk away, seeing him as trash. That evening, Leonard thinks about how powerful Blade is, knowing he doesn't stand a chance, but he thinks that Ernest will never like him if he doesn't defeat Blade. The next day, he meets up with Maria, who knows that he wants to win against Blade, so she tells him that she's rooting for him. Leonard thanks her, saying he will win at any cost, because he wants Ernest to recognize him. At that moment, Eliza joins them, knowing they can never win against Blade, so she offers to help them, saying she will come up with a plan for them. Leonard gathers Blade's friends, asking them if they have any suggestions on how they can defeat him, so Jessica suggests attacking him while he sleeps. Ernest calls it a cowardly tactic, but Eliza reminds her that Blade is overpowered, so it isn't really a fair fight. Eliza explains that they need to defeat Blade by any means necessary, but Ernest says that she wants to fight him head-on, using any weapon that can give her the advantage. They conclude the meeting, and Ernest fights Blade using Leonard's lance, but he easily defeats her, breaking the lance. Jessica says that it's time to try her method, so she sneaks into Blade's room while he's sleeping, but Iona sees her, and blasts her away. Jessica wonders why Iona attacked her, because they're supposed to be allies, but Iona tells her that it was an automatic function. The others try to take him on, but none of them stand a chance, because Blade is just too strong. Ernest even tries to win in the game of rock paper scissors, but she keeps on losing, and she ends up breaking her wrist. They have another meeting, where Ernest tells everyone that she wants to defeat Blade, and force him to admit defeat. They remember how Iona won against him, when she used her own life as a hostage, so they think that they should use hostages to achieve their goal. Leonard seems to be against this plan, but Ernest tells him that they can win, and they all decide to go along with it. In the classroom, Blade asks Ernest about Leonard and the others. She tries to play dumb, and Jessica tells him that they are just running an errand. Claire tells him not to worry about them, as three masked men enter the room, saying the room is under their control. Ernest calls them terrorists, but Blade isn't bothered at all. The terrorists take the doctor hostage, ordering the students to leave the room. Blade is about to leave, but Ernest stops him, telling him that the doctor is being held hostage. The doctor seems to be happy about this, knowing Blade is about to save her, and the girls volunteer to be taken as hostage, wanting Blade to save them. They start arguing with each other, as the doctor walks away, letting them take her spot. Ernest has been chosen as the hostage, but Blade doesn't even know what a hostage is, so he asks Ku to explain it. But Ku tells him that a hostage is a food, and this just makes him confused. His calm demeanor gets on Ernest's nerves, and she tells him to save her, as the girls tell him that they have all been tied down, so they need to be saved. But Blade is still trying to understand what is happening, thinking that the terrorists are going to keep them as food. The terrorists tell Blade to surrender, but Blade knows that they are his friends, because he recognized their behavior. They remove their masks, and they all bow to him, as Blade asks them what they plan to do with the girls. Cassim tells him that they are going to be kept as food, saying the girls now belong to him, but Claire beats him up. Leonard tells Blade to surrender, knowing he is weak against hostages, but he tells Leonard that their plan won't work. He takes Ernest as a hostage, while Clay asks Blade if he is going to give up, but Blade casually swings his sword, and the boys are disarmed and stripped of their clothes. Everyone attacks Blade with everything they have, but he wipes the floor with them, wondering what they are doing. Maria admits that the boys were just pretending to be terrorists, so Blade thinks that they were playing a make-believe game, asking them if they will be back tomorrow, but it seems they've had enough. In the cafeteria, Blade sees a group of students holding a birthday celebration, and we learn that he doesn't even know what a birthday is. Dione reveals that they don't know Blade's exact age, saying they just found him 16 years ago, when he was around 1 year old. Maria inquires about the date he was found, so Dione tells her that it's coming up in about a month. We learn that Blade was holding onto a sword when they found him, and that's how he got his name. Ernest thinks about something to give Blade as a birthday gift, and at that moment, the king suddenly joins them, saying that a pork curry would make a good present. Jessica tells him that Blade can get that food in the cafeteria, but Gilgamesh suggests preparing a special tonkatsu curry. The students gather at an underground chamber, where Gilgamesh reveals that they're about to undergo training by eating delicious food, showing them a jungle. Everyone wonders how such a place could fit beneath the castle, thinking there could be magic involved. The door behind them closes, as Gilgamesh explains that it won't open until they finish their quest. His assistant tells the students to survive until they consume 11 billion calories, and Dione reveals that there are plenty of ingredients around them, but the creatures in the area are violent. The students set up camp, as Jessica lures the monster to an open area, but the creature notices Claire, and it chases her instead. Maria allows Mao to take over, and she uses a spell to defeat the monster, allowing them to capture it. They bring the monster's remains to the camp, where they start cooking it, and we see everyone doing their part, making sure that the camp is well protected. Blade is taking a bath, when Ernest suddenly joins him. She notices the scar on his chest, so she wonders what he was like as a child. Blade reveals that he was always fighting for his life, knowing he wouldn't survive if he didn't get stronger. Ernest touches his chest, and she starts leaning closer, but Claire suddenly charges to her, telling her not to go any further, and Ernest is embarrassed to learn that they were watching her. The camp eventually turns into a village, as the students get closer to reaching their goal, but Gilgamesh thinks that the task is too easy for them, so he comes up with a new challenge, ordering the students to gather the ingredients he has listed. They enter a cave, where they encounter a cabbage monster. Ernest is about to burn it, but Sophie stops her, telling her that they need it raw. They all gang up on the monster, and they are able to capture it. The students go to a cornfield to find the next ingredient, and they encounter a boxing corn. Blade is about to fight it, but Sophie tells him that it won't taste good if he doesn't use his fists. Blade has a boxing match with the monster, managing to win, and the group captures it. They see a carrot on the ground, and Blade is about to pull it out, but Ernest stops him, as the carrot lets out a piercing sound. Ernest reveals that its scream is a lethal curse, but Iona steps forward, telling Blade that curses have no effect on her, since she's just a robot. She pulls out the carrots, and the others cover their ears, as the sound destroys every living thing in the area. Iona manages to complete the task, and Gilgamesh compliments them on their progress, telling them that it's time to gather the final ingredient. They go to the giant tree, as they hunt the creature known as the Beast King. The ground shakes, as the Beast King makes its entrance. The students are ready to take it on, but Blade sees something behind it, as a massive creature takes out the monster, letting out a powerful roar. Gilgamesh recognizes it as a behemoth, and he knows that it tastes even better than the Beast King. The students attack with everything they have, but the behemoth makes short work of them. Sophie and Iona blast the creature, with all the girls following after them, creating a massive explosion, but it still has no effect on the behemoth. The creature fires an energy beam, but Leonard protects everyone with a barrier. Ernest allows Blade to borrow Asmodeus, as he says that there is only one technique that can take it down, but Mel knows that he won't be able to do it, since he can only use 15% of his powers. Blade tells her that he needs 30% of his powers to use it, so he asks to borrow some of her power, holding onto her hand. But Mel tells him that she knows a faster way to do it, so she kisses him, and transfers the energy to him. Sophie immobilizes the behemoth, as Iona fires her cannon, but it isn't enough to stop the creature, so the students distract it, as Blade and Mal raise Asmodeus, telling everyone to stand back. A whirlwind surrounds them, as Asmodeus transforms into a giant sword, known as the Holy Demon Blade. They use it to strike the behemoth, slicing it in half, as Mal recalls the technique as the same one that Blade used to defeat her. But Blade is now exhausted, and he thanks Mal for helping him use the skill, before passing out. They return to the academy, where the doctor tells Blade that he can now use 18% of his powers, because his body is slowly recovering. Blade makes his way to the cafeteria, where the students surprise him, wishing him a happy birthday. Ernest tells him that this is the day he was fostered, so they are considering it his birthday. Ku tells him that he is now 18 years old, and Ernest shows him their gift, which is a special tonkatsu curry made from the ingredients that they gathered. He can't believe they did this all for him, and when he tastes it, he starts to cry, thanking them all for being his friend. We see Clay learning Blade's technique, creating a wind vortex that strikes the target, and he is happy that he was able to do it. Sophie joins them, and he gives her a vague explanation on how he did it. She is also able to use the technique, surrounding herself with a powerful whirlwind, as the boys wonder what's going on. Blade tells them that this is what the skill is supposed to look like, and Sophie launches the wind at the target, completely shattering it. She suddenly tries to attack Blade, but the real Sophie appears, blocking her attack. Everyone gathers around them, surprised to see that there are two Sophies, so the imposter immediately retreats. She returns to an abandoned building, where we learn that her name is One, and we see she is working with the other clones from the Artificial Hero program. She reports that the scouting mission was a success, and she shares the data with everyone, allowing them all to learn Blade's technique. They try using it, destroying the building they're in, but they reveal that this isn't really their goal, and that their real mission is to assassinate Blade. Jessica tries out Eliza's invention, launching fire at the target, and everyone is impressed to see this, but Blade thinks that it's nothing special, so Eliza becomes upset, reminding him that they're not as strong as him. At that moment, one of the clones appear, and Blade asks her what she wants to learn. She says that she wants to learn how to kill him, and she starts attacking him, fiercely exchanging blows with him, but she gets pushed back, saying he isn't doing a good job at teaching her, because he's still alive. Blade tells her that he doesn't want to die, but she starts flirting with him, and Sophie suddenly arrives, threatening the girl, so she decides to retreat. We learn that this is the fourth time that the girls attacked Blade, so they discuss this at the cafeteria, wondering why they are doing this. Ernest thinks that they are trying to assassinate him, but he doesn't seem to care, and Sophie promises to protect him. At their hideout, the girls gather before their leader, who wants them to prove that they can surpass the great hero, because that's the reason why they were created. Sophie checks up on Blade as he sleeps, and she learns that he is being protected by Iona. She tells Sophie not to worry, because she will stay by his side, so Sophie goes outside, where she encounters One. She tells One that the girls should give up, because they can't kill Blade, but One tells her that they were given orders, and surpassing the great hero is the only purpose of their lives. Sophie knows that they were modified after the hero project was abandoned, thinking it must have had some impact on their bodies, and One confirms this, saying that lifespans have been shortened. Sophie tries to convince her to abandon the mission, but she says that their order is absolute, and she charges at Sophie, who blocks her attack, pushing her back and knocking her down. Sophie is about to finish her off, but she hesitates, and she allows One to walk away, as she tells Sophie that they will be waiting for her. We see Blade with his friends in the VR world, as he comments that Sophie looks tiny, but the girl tells him that her name is Senku. This makes them realize that the girls have names, and Eliza knows that Senku is an ancient lost word which means number 5. She proceeds to attack Blade, knocking him down, and continuing to pummel him while he's on the ground. He ends up dying, but he wakes back up in the real world, and Eliza reveals that Senku is happy that she was able to defeat him, thinking it should have been enough to convince her that Blade is now dead. However, Senku realizes that she has been tricked, so she hunts him down, and another girl joins in, wanting to take him down. He lures them to another building, where Ernest has gathered the mages, who fire at the girls, but one of them continues to dash forward, but Ernest blasts her away. However, Senku immediately follows up, catching Ernest by surprise, so Blade uses magic to knock her back. Ernest is surprised that he can use magic, but the girls get back up, combining their powers to create a black hole, which destroys everything in the area. Blade thinks that it will only last for 10 seconds, but even though the girls are now exhausted, the black hole still remains. Iona explains that it will not die out by itself, and it's about to suck some of the students in, but Blade saves them. Sophie jumps to the hole, and she uses her powers to absorb its energy, causing it to lose strength, and she is able to get rid of it, but she becomes exhausted, so she collapses, as Blade catches her, telling her that she did a good job. That evening, Sophie regains consciousness, and she wonders if there were any casualties. Blade tells her that only a few people were injured, but Claire has already healed them, so there is nothing to worry about. He asks Sophie about the girls, and she reveals that they were also part of the Hero Project, but they underwent further modifications. She reminds him that she was rescued by Gilgamesh, saying the girls didn't have anyone to help them, so her fate was different. Blade says that he wants to be friends with the girls, suggesting they could all enroll at the school. But Sophie knows that this can't happen because their sole purpose in life is to defeat him, and she reveals that they underwent neural modifications, so they have no choice but to obey their orders. We see Blade and his friends confronting the king, as we learn that Sophie has withdrawn from the academy. Ernest wonders why Gilgamesh didn't stop her, but he says that it's not up to him to decide. Blade thinks she must be looking for her sisters, and Ernest insists on bringing her back. Jessica thinks they should start by looking for the girls' hideouts, but Gilgamesh tells them to think about why Sophie chose to go alone. He notes that the only way to stop the sisters is by killing them, so Sophie must not want them to get their hands dirty. Ernest thinks there must be another way, and the king tells them to think carefully before deciding what to do. Blade decides to go after her anyway, with Ku and Iona wanting to help Sophie as well. Mal also decides to go with them, and as they prepare to head off, they see the rest of their friends are already ready to go, and they even call them late. We see Sophie at one of the hideouts, but it's already empty, and Ernest catches up to her. Sophie tells her to let her go alone, but Ernest insists they can help her. Sophie goes on to explain the Great Hero Project to her friends, explaining that she and her sisters were created to surpass the Great Hero. The program was supposedly shut down, but someone stole the research and samples, leading to the release of her sisters. Ernest is confused why they are after Blade when they should be after the Great Hero, but she thinks that they must just be using him to test their power, and Blade just plays along. Sophie feels guilty for being the only one of them to have a normal life, so she wants to protect them all and make things right, even if it costs her her life. But Ernest suddenly hits her, telling her she can rely on her friends. Sophie thinks it will be hard to save them since they are forced to obey their orders, and the modifications to their bodies mean that they don't have much time left to live. But Blade tells her to believe in him, and he asks everyone for their help. Meanwhile, we see the sisters in another hideout, and they are reminded of their goal to kill Blade. They find a letter outside, and it's an invitation to challenge Blade. At the academy arena, Blade waits for the sisters to show up. Ernest wonders if they will take the bait, but Sophie is confident because she would accept if it was up to her. The sisters end up showing up, and they tell Blade they are about to kill him. We hear Eliza reminding him of their plan, and we learn he must fight alone because the sisters will just run if anyone else joins in. The sisters immediately rush at him, and Eliza tells him his goal is to deplete their energy so that they can find the person giving them orders and find a way to reprogram the girls. Blade starts to struggle against them, and he even loses his sword. Ernest worries for him, but Sophie tells her to have faith in him. Blade manages to stop them all with a barrier and push them all back. Ernest feels bad for not being able to do anything, but Jessica reminds her there's a way for them to help. Blade recovers his sword, but one of the sisters activates her hero ability, causing everything to turn upside down, and Blade is knocked around. Her technique ends, and Blade falls to the ground, but the girl has also run out of energy. The next sister activates her power, creating countless clones of herself, but Jessica suddenly throws Blade a vial, which he loads into his sword, allowing him to use her power, and he blows the copies away. The girl also runs out of power, and the next sister charges at Blade, but Leonard throws Blade his power, allowing him to create a barrier and block the girl's attack. However, Blade's sword is destroyed, and Sanka charges at him. Blade manages to dodge, and he calls out to Ernest to give him her power. She wonders how he can use it without his sword, but she throws her vial anyway. However, Sanku interrupts them, and the vial falls to the ground. Sophie quickly uses her power to stop time, allowing her to retrieve the vial and save Blade. Sanku prepares to attack with her hero power, but Blade borrows power from Sophie, and he manages to counter it, causing Sanku to become exhausted. One is the only one left, and she prepares to finish Blade off, but he still has Ernest's power, and he manages to match her attack. Fire goes everywhere, and all the students panic. As the dust clears, One is still standing, and the sun starts to set. Blade wonders what she's waiting for, but she notes that her time is up, as her body starts to deteriorate. Blade wonders what's going on, and One reveals that they only had 14 days to live, and today was their last day. Blade asks Eliza for help, but she notes that there's just not enough time. Blade thinks about finding their creator to save them. Eliza reveals that they already found him, but it seems he's been dead for a long time, so there was no one actually giving the sisters orders. Sophie tells Blade to gather all her sisters, and she tells One that there's still a chance for them to survive. One thinks there's no point in living since they failed, but Blade tells them if they live, they can get stronger and try to surpass him. The girls like his idea, and Sophie tells One to use her hero power. With help from Blade, all their souls and minds are able to be transferred to Sophie. The next day, we see Blade in the infirmary, and Sophie comes to visit him. We learn that all the sisters now share her body, and One tells him to recover so that they can try killing him again. Sophie takes control, and Blade asks her how she's holding up. She compares it to having 5 children inside her, but she's glad that she managed to save them. The next week, we see Gilgamesh holding another training session as a giant monster fights against the students. Many of them are blown away, and Ku transforms into her dragon form to deal with it, but even she is no match. Gilgamesh's assistant notes that there was a mix-up when the monster was delivered, so it's the raw monster that's way stronger than expected. We see Ernest attacking with her flames, but even that has no effect. Sophie uses the power of all her sisters, using all of their different skills, but it barely does anything. Mao and Iona blast the monster with everything they have, but the monster is completely unfazed. Things are looking bad, but Gilgamesh just laughs. He says there's no need to worry, because they have the great hero, and the monster is suddenly taken out in a single hit. Blade arrives with his lunch, and he wonders what they're all doing, but that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.